Got to be a huge problem. Yep. There's always got to be a huge problem. Yeah, we probably were live. Okay. All right, everybody. Sorry about that. This is normal because, you know, none of this live streaming stuff really makes any sense. But enough with all the technical stuff. Let's get down to business. Looking at our slide here for a moment, I'm calling this part 4 of our investigation into the global, very acrimonious elite divorce that is going on right now on a worldwide level, which also kind of looks like a battle between good and evil, to be very honest. And what I've been telling everybody is, if you aren't paying attention, you should be, because everything that I've been telling you all these years is coming to a head right now. And this is actually a tweet that somebody wrote in from just a few minutes ago. 34 minutes ago is when I took the picture. It was about 12 minutes ago that I took that picture. Samanon says, everything you said before has been happening. Thank you for sharing. It is blowing my mind to see it all unfolding. LOL. So as I've said before, folks, let's go over here. Yeah. So this is the secret, okay? This is what I wrote long before this stuff started happening. It was already finished in January. The manuscript was done. I can prove that. And it talks about everything that's going on right now. This is the latest book, Awakening in the Dream, and it's pretty awesome. We've got the highest ranking on Amazon yet out of any of them. It's like a solid 5-star. Really, really incredible. So thank you guys, all of you out there, for your support. As you know, my focus is always on going beneath the surface, looking at the deeper stories that are hiding behind these headlines, and looking for the spiritual truth that can be found in otherwise inexplicable social and public events. We are not in a normal period of time. We are poised on the brink of something that is extremely big, much, much bigger than the incident in 2001 in September, much bigger. And I have every confidence that this event is going to take place very soon. There will be a whole series of events. It's probably going to be the most game-changing, eye-opening, shocking, revelatory moment in any modern history. I can't even think of anything that would compare to something like this. And what's so strange, too, is that so few people know about this. So few people have any awareness of what really is going on. I mean, let's be clear. You look at the world and you see that there's been a lot of trouble, and it's built up, especially this past year. It's gotten very intense, even searing. But what we haven't really seen is a ray of light, a ray of hope. A lot of people are very, very worried. And what's happening right now is what we could call the dark night of the soul. And this is happening on a global level. In fact, I would say this is probably the first time that we've had a true global dark night of the soul experience. Now, what is the dark night of the soul? The dark night of the soul is a concept that comes from Jungian psychotherapy originally. And it is regarding this idea that, as I've talked about in my previous book, Synchronicity Key, there is a universal template for human soul evolution. There is a galactic design that makes us go through a series of learning experiences. Those learning experiences, and believe me, I'm getting to something. This is important, so just hang with me, okay? The learning experiences ultimately are here to teach us about the fact that we live in a spiritual universe. Everything for why you're here on Earth, the whole reason you're here, is spiritual. And if you haven't figured that out yet, then you're probably repeating a lot of traumatic experiences and not learning from them, and you're not really getting what this is all about. So the fundamental principle that all of these videos that I give you is based upon is the idea that the universe itself is alive, the universe is intelligent, the universe is conscious, and your awareness has a direct linkage to that universal awareness. You have access to the cosmos within yourself. You have all the technology. You don't need to buy anything new. You don't need to get upgraded. Well, there is an upgrade going on, but the point is, if you think about the jack in the box, right? You're cranking that wheel and you don't know what's going to happen, and then boom, it pops out. That's spring-loaded, okay? That's a term I would like to use, spring-loaded. Your DNA is spring-loaded. And the events that are taking place on Earth now are actually transforming our consciousness and ultimately our physical bodies and our evolutionary level. Now, this happens gradually, okay? It's not necessarily anything sudden. But if you look back at the research that I've put together over so many years, we have credible scientific evidence that, for example, the DNA molecule can originate out of non-living material. A simple solution of water with some basic nucleotides in it that would be found anywhere in the universe, and you beam in electromagnetic energy that has the signature of water, the signature of DNA rather, into water. And DNA grows in the water. This is what we ended with on the last video. So think about the fact that all of this is coming together now. All of this scientific knowledge that is so groundbreaking, to realize that we are part of a living universe, that we have this connection to something much greater than ourselves, and it is inalienable, it is inalienable, it is irrevocable, and you have a true sovereignty. So in the book Awakening in the Dream, I go through an extensive analysis of what for me has always been my core spiritual body of material. And that is called the Law of One. So the Law of One is a body of material that really for me has no comparison, because I was able to identify hundreds of specific scientific points in this material that correlated with research, discoveries that were not available when the words were first given in 1981 and 1983. And this is allegedly 3 people working together, and Carla Ruckert, the instrument, spoke in deep trance, did not remember anything that was going on, and the syntax was very dense and very peculiar. But what ended up happening is this 5-book series that came out, you can find it online for free. You do not have to pay to read this. It's at lawofone.info, lawofone.info. So nobody's monetizing the Law of One in that sense. You can read it for free online, and you can study it with keyword searches. You can look for how many instances of a particular word. The Law of One had a gigantic transformative effect on my life. And finally, in this book, Awakening the Dream, I go through the whole, let's go over this way. I go through the whole story of how I found this book, and I lay out, like some people get a little bit lost in the earlier chapters. Why is he talking about physics now? Why is he talking about rotating balls weighing less than balls that are not rotating when you drop them? Okay, that's all because all of these different weird scientific things that I start talking about then showed up in the Law of One, and I show you how that happens in this book. I show you how the Law of One actually validated a whole bunch of very interesting and contentious information. So not only did I have the experience of reading the Law of One, I had the experience of forming some type of relationship with the source, which came in the form of dreams initially. I had been writing all my dreams down every morning since September 21st, 1992, and that's when I cut all the cords with any type of substance use, alcohol, psychedelics, whatever. I just stopped doing everything September 21st, 1992. And then very shortly thereafter, I began writing all my dreams down. So there's a lot of dreams in the book, how I analyze them. And again, I don't want to beat the point to death here, but the book is still current. The book still tells you what's going to happen after the point that we're at right now. It doesn't just stop where we are. A very important part of the book is how reading the Law of One somehow engendered what you could construe as a contact with the same source through me using a similar method. And again, I don't ask you to take my word for it. I want you to actually read the book and scrutinize this for yourself. I find that almost all of the attacks, if we do get any, are character attacks, ad hominem it's also called. They attack me, they attack my character. The data is actually remarkable because you have prophecy statements that came through that clearly indicated a knowledge of upcoming future events, including the event in 2001, including the 2000 election crisis. And now, as I just said in the last video, that prophecy applies equally well to what happened in 2020 and seems to have implications of where it's going, because we see both the names Biden and Trump encoded into the wording, where all you have to do is subtract some consonants and you get most of the letters there, and they're in the right order. So that to me is really fascinating, because the prophecy's in the book. So there's a prophecy about this election that I put in the book talking about 2000, not realizing that it was going to be applicable to both. Anyway, that's a whole long discussion. But what I really want to get into today is that we are freaking out of time, folks. So enough of this spiritual mumbo-jumbo. We got business to take care of. So let's go back to the slide. The alliance has run out of time. Yeah, there we go. And why do I say that? Because today is January 5th, and tomorrow, January 6th, and I just typed this in on Google, you can see this, 78 million results when I type in January 6, 2021 Electoral College. Well, Google doesn't give you a whole lot of sense that there might be anything contentious or strange or abnormal about this, except if you look at the right there, it says Hawley, Cruz, and other Republican senators plan to reject the Electoral College. What the heck is that all about? I'm kind of amazed that they even have a clickable link there, but then again, they're not going to tell you what is really going on. People have become so disillusioned with mainstream media. The level of anger that I see now in the videos that people are putting out. And I don't advocate this stuff, by the way, folks. If we are going into a situation where there's going to be military activity, for God's sake, stay in the house. Okay, when I used to live in California, we lived up on the area where there was a good mountain view. We had a good, solid view. And one day, my old buddy from high school, Jude, was staying with me, and a helicopter started circling my house. While it's just my buddy and me in there alone, okay? The helicopter is circling the house and shining a spotlight inside the windows. Now try to imagine, with me, with who I am, and with what I've done, and all the crap that I've been involved in over the years, and a helicopter starts circling your house and shining a light in. You wonder if this is it. You wonder if you're going to start seeing guys zip-lining out of that thing and coming in. Okay, that's what I was thinking about. My buddy starts panicking. He goes, and I'm going to use my vocal impression. What do you think we should do, brother? What should we do? Should we go outside and put our hands up? And I'm like, dude, absolutely not. We are not under arrest that we know of. If they want to get me, all they got to do is knock on the door politely. They sure as hell, you don't go outside and put your hands up when there's a helicopter out there. So what it turns out was, and we called later, we found out, there was a guy that was on the loose. And so they were looking for him. He was a runner. So they knew that he had ran right near where my house was. So they were actually looking to see if he was hiding somewhere around the house, or obviously if there was something going on inside the house, that would be different. But so this is a very important point, folks. Why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because the equivalent might be happening soon. And for God's sake, if there's a helicopter outside, don't go outside, because that makes you look suspicious. Okay, that's what I told Jude. I said, we are not going out there, because we go out there with our hands up, they're going to assume we're guilty, and they're going to tell us on the bullhorn to get down on the ground. No freaking way. So if any of this kind of stuff starts happening, do not be an American hero. Do not be a weekend warrior. Do not pick up your piece and run outside. You stay in the house. This is very, very important. And I cannot stress this enough. The groups that the Alliance has chosen to work with, they already have all those established relationships, as far as I know. If you get some other kind of instructions, if somebody comes to your house and it seems official or whatever, if that kind of thing happens, fine. But it's very critical to just remain calm. I cannot stress this enough. People are going to panic. They're going to not know what's going on, especially in the larger city areas, because what you might be seeing is lots of helicopter traffic, lots of activity, and a lot of concern. And a lot of, because the whole scenario that we're hearing about probably will include at least no telephone, no internet, and possibly no power. There was a very, very significant hack that happened last year and around March, and they've made it public now. I'd heard about it before it was public, where the certain foreign entity with the name starting with C, and I'm being very careful when I start to talk about certain things, so we'll just call it C, okay? That way, these videos are not as easy to find by things that go around and sniff for keywords. So that's what we're doing, okay? Just so that you understand why this burden of me talking in code is necessary. I'm not doing it to entertain myself. There's a very specific reason, because I think at this point, these guys have got a lot bigger problems than this video, but we still don't want to make it easy for them to find it, okay? So the C, this country that starts with C, what we're dealing with, apparently, is a prolonged anger, which is understandable, honestly. I can understand why they're angry. I can understand why they dislike Americans. I can understand why they dislike our politics, why they dislike our leader. I can understand why they would want to see this country completely humiliated and brought to its knees. And if you don't know, then you're not really being savvy about geopolitics. We have caused a lot of, we as Americans, right, with having this, the most affluent country in the world, having the country with a much, much larger military budget than other countries in the world by an enormous amount. We've also not only been hated, but we've been a beacon of freedom. We've been a beacon of how to run free and fair elections. We're the model that other people in the world tend to want to follow. Not everybody, but certainly there's a sentiment that's been fairly sympathetic to America. When it turns out that these elections are no longer even under our control and that the vote has nothing to do with it, we have undermined the entirety of the guarantees that were promised us by the Constitution. We have lost our ability to govern ourselves. We've lost the ability for our voices to be heard. And if that doesn't scare you, then I don't know what else to tell you. I'm sure now that enough people have saw through this and figured out what's going on. There's a lot of bravery. There's a lot of amazing whistleblowers stepping up. There's a tremendous number of great affidavits. And there's a whole lot more coming on now that we're going to talk about. So tomorrow, the 6th, is a very critical day. And there's a reason why I waited until the day before to start talking about this stuff, because we really don't know how intense this could get. Worst case scenario is that serious hostility starts tomorrow. Serious hostility, dangerous hostility, hostility that could erupt very quickly into something that is global. This is real. This is not a fake threat. This is a very serious thing, because if nothing were to happen tomorrow, if there was no opposition, and remember, we have, I forget the last count, it's like 140 people in the House of Representatives, and it's something like 13 senators, last I looked, it's probably more now, that are all planning to oppose this. And supposedly, we're going to get a hearing of new evidence. And this new evidence, if all the sources and all the chatter that's out there, and these are reliable, sources right next to the president, it looks like we're going to get new information. And it might not happen exactly tomorrow, but I would say definitely within the week. It's a big deal. And I believe Senator Ted Cruz is the one who called for a 10-day evidentiary hearing to take place. A colleague of mine, Natural News, Mike Adams, has actually said that he doesn't think this is necessarily a good thing. But his first broadcast, when it first came out, he was excited about it. And I think it is going to be necessary. The alliance has to factor into the equation that people need enough time to encounter information, to read about it, and to think about it. This would be the ideal structure. The ideal structure would be, in my view, that we have a period of time over a number of days, however many days, maybe not 10, but might not need that many, but a certain number of days in which whatever they're claiming they have as evidence, and it might not be all the evidence they have, but clearly there's a lot that we haven't seen yet. So if they could present us with some of this evidence on that all-important day, and on those subsequent days, over the course of time, people can process this. What I really think the alliance is trying to avoid is anything that is so sudden and jarring that nobody saw it coming, and it causes unnecessary trauma. So what we probably will see, now but bear in mind too that some of the briefings we got, which again, you know, we're getting original intel that you're not going to find anywhere else online. It does happen. I have my own contacts, and then I also do a lot of due diligence of looking at everything I can find online from all the key people and trying to put all this together for you. I do the work so you don't have to do the work. When I feel like it, I guess, right? I'm not always doing these, but my wife just finished her class, and so now we have reconfigured the set here for a seated position instead of sitting on the floor. I can't do that. So we're happy to be bringing you this message. So the 6th is very important. If there is no hearing, so I've learned how to talk differently now as a result of what happened with the last situation, okay? Don't promise anything because nobody knows what's going on. Even the sources that I've been getting direct briefings from, not the stuff publicly, it changes every day. The dates change, the plans change, new events unfold that completely change everything, and they didn't see it coming, and now they reconfigure what they're going to do around the new events. And I think some of those events are going to be very obvious to you now. The next big deadline that we absolutely cannot get around here, back to the slide, is the inauguration. And this is Wednesday the 20th. Now, notice that Google is kind of making it easy for you, right? What they're thinking it's going to turn into, because it says the inauguration of JB 2021. No irony at all. You know, no questioning of whether this is real. And then you go to the sidebar, it says, yeah, the inauguration of JB as the 46th President of the United States will mark the commencement of the 4-year term of JB as President and Kamala Harris as Vice President. There you go. So that is not what's going to be happening, folks. And I will tell you multiple reasons why that's not going to be happening. It's not going to be happening because everybody in the alliance is dead if they allow this to happen. And that's what we were told. Everybody is dead. They're going to get you, they're going to find you, and they're going to snuff you out. Okay? And I'm not talking about everybody like you guys in the audience. I'm talking about the key people who have been working on this. They know this, folks. You have to remember that. Everybody knows it's now or never. This is it. Okay? So we're not talking about, oh, I wonder if something might happen, or, yeah, you know, I don't know. I'm not really, this is just another one of those things. David does a video and then nothing happens. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Freedom, back to the slide. Freedom is about to be restored like never before. What you're going to see is not a negative at all. I'm concerned about it, but honestly, I think the whole thing's going to go pretty smoothly, and I don't think it's going to take that long. Could be 3 days, could be 5 days, could be a week, could be 2 weeks. I doubt it's going to be much more than that based on what everybody seems to be thinking on the inside. But you know, if you follow my work, that I've been predicting something like this, some kind of mass arrest, all the way back since 2009. Now, what is that I'm talking about? Okay. The mass arrest scenario, and I usually put those 3 words together, the mass arrest scenario involves the idea that the people who have really been doing the evil stuff, the people who are the hidden elite conspirators that have done so much to try to damage and destroy life on Earth, that there is a layer of history that we're going to hit where the only way we can solve this thing is to arrest them, and the only way you can do something like that, since it's an organized crime ring, is to do a whole bunch of it at once. And so we're looking at the distinct possibility that in multiple sectors in which the public has been greatly deceived, that there will be arrests. This includes media. This includes social media, big tech. This includes all kinds of stuff in the government, all kinds of people in different positions, and many, many other things, financial related, corporate related, probably pharmaceutical related. I would imagine that the president has made a list and checked it twice, and he knows who's naughty or nice, and they're probably going to try to get as many of them as they can. So usually when I do this stuff, there's applause breaks in the audience. People start cheering, clapping. They get up on their feet, standing ovation kind of stuff. Everybody wants this. People don't want to see our planet just go down the tubes. And we're very, very frightened about what might happen, because if the inauguration takes place on the 20th, JB could immediately invoke the insurrection, as it's called, the act. and I'm not going to say it back to back, he could invoke that and then immediately, you know, go to business on the alliance. And so they're very concerned about the 20th and that he could get slipped in, you know, even though there's something going on in dispute. So what we're really trying to do here, folks, is hopefully get this to work without a whole lot of crazy stuff. But no matter what, back to the slide again, this may require a short but very real war. Okay, that is probably going to happen. There's probably going to be some big-time damage in the major urban areas. Some of them may be down for months. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. It is not, let's go back to the front one here. It's not a good time to be unprepared. And so one of the main messages that I also have today is to be prepared, to do the things that you need to do to make sure that you have fuel, that you have food, that you have water, and that you have enough blankets if your house doesn't have heat, that kind of stuff. But at the same time, back to the slide again, despite the fact that this kind of stuff might happen, it's going to be quick and efficient. It shouldn't take very long. And we're asking that you please remain calm and reassure other people. Now, why is it going to have to turn into this? Well, the Alliance, as I said this last time, the Alliance has already been calling this a cyber Pearl Harbor. And after I mentioned that term, I noticed that all the other folks started to use it. That was because we were tipped off a little bit in advance of when everybody started using it. If you noticed that, that was pretty cool. And again, one of the things that we keep hearing, which seems incredibly insane, I mean, incredibly ridiculous, but you know, and again, if you want to look at this as comedy, that's fine, but I'm not laughing. This country may actually try to invade. They may, apparently they've already got the assets in position. And we've heard a lot about this stuff. So this is crazy. The hack that they did last March, apparently they got into the power grid and they figured out how to turn everything off. Some of the briefings that we've been getting are that all of those hacks have been closed. They've been worried about the possibility of some malware in there that could still cause some things to happen, but they've worked really, really hard to try to get any of that out. So we don't think that it's going to be a big grid problem, like a long-term grid problem, but it appears that the original plan, if it was done the way they wanted it to be, would be that nobody has power. And in a situation like that, if you moved very rapidly and people didn't anticipate something, you could probably get a lot done if there was no power. So hopefully the power outage thing's not going to happen. We don't really know. But if they were to try this, let's go back to the slide again. I think deterrence makes this very, very unlikely. And the reason why is that no matter what they do, if they were to actually do this, it's the end for them. It's mutual destruction, and they would lose a lot more than we would, we as in America. So let's talk a little bit about some of the strange stuff that you might not hear from anybody else but me. There was a strange UFO sighting that actually may be related to what's going on now, because as it turns out, both the US and this other country have what you could think of as UFOs, anti-gravity machines. So let's talk about something that only happened literally yesterday. There was a very suspicious, multiple witness UFO sighting in Hawaii. And here's the link to that from good old ABC. Bright blue UFO seen crashing into ocean near Hawaii prompts calls to 911 and the FAA. And then when you zoom in on this, you can see that the voiceover of the person. I look up and then I was like, oh, smack. And you look at the image here and you can see something that looks kind of triangular or boomerang shaped. And so apparently what happened is that this object was seen and filmed. You can watch the film for several minutes by many, many people. And then it literally drops down into the ocean, just flies right into the ocean like it posed no resistance. So here's a little bit, I'm going to read you a little bit of this. An unidentified flying object spotted in Hawaii caught enough people's attention to get the FAA involved. FAA agents claim they did receive reports about the UFO from police, who were getting several 911 calls about it. The callers all said, here we go, they saw a large blue object fall out of the sky and into the ocean. Multiple videos show the object flying in the night sky near Haleakala Avenue in Nanakuli. Sorry if I'm ruining those pronunciations. I look up and then I was like, oh, Mistina Sape said in an interview with a local news station. I started calling my husband then because they were all in the garage. I was like, hey, come look up there. See if you see what I see. They all did. I don't know what it was. This one was going so fast, Sape said. And elsewhere they say that she was not at all a UFO believer right up until this happened. She didn't even think any of this stuff was true. Okay, let's go on and read a little more now. Her investigation ended 3 miles, this is somebody else that they write about in the article, 3 miles later when the blue light, which she described as being larger than a telephone pole, appeared to fall into the ocean. Actually, no, this is still Sape talking at this point. The blue light that appeared to be larger than a telephone pole fell into the ocean. It crashed through the water and never made a sound. That's when Sape and her husband called 911. When officers arrived, they all spotted a second light in the sky. This is interesting. Look at this, folks. This is the kind of stuff that would happen if it was a war. My husband went to look up and he saw the white one coming. The white one was smaller. It was coming in the same direction as the blue one. The white light passed over a nearby town and disappeared from view. Honolulu Police Department said it did not have any information about the case it could release. However, the FAA said it received a report from the department about a possible airplane down in the area, but then the FAA said it did not have any aircraft disappear off the radar, nor any reports of overdue or missing aircraft. So as I'm arguing here, this was likely one of ours. They call this a HAUC. It's a flying triangle, hybrid air underwater craft, HAUC or HAUC. According to the briefings I've received, and this is a very, very serious issue, folks. I know you might want to laugh right now, and it's okay if you do, that's fine. But this might be a lot more serious than you would ever imagine. China obtained this technology during the Obama administration. It was sold to them as part of this relationship that's been apparently going on for a long time. And again, I have nothing against the people. It's so sad to me that the people get stuck in these kind of situations where they have leadership that's putting them at risk and taking these kind of risks and not taking their safety into account. So none of this makes me happy. Okay, I'm not saying that I enjoy what's going on. But what we heard is that during the Obama administration, that the entirety of how this stuff works and how to build it and everything was sold to this country, and they have their own fleet, they have their own ships. The U.S., which is now going to be the Space Force, has many more, okay? Probably what we're going to get as this whole thing churns out into the open and we learn new things, we're going to hear about and we're going to probably see these flying triangles that are owned and run by the Alliance. It's super, super amazing. So back to the slide again. The U.S. actually has far more of these than China. Now, I'm going to give you guys the fear porn, even though I think it's totally not going to happen. I'll just tell you what we heard, just so nobody's, nothing's being blocked. We have heard that there is a new type of weapon that they call a 6th gen, and I'm not going to say the rest of the words. These 6th gens are still a possible threat. Now, they are not, they don't use this radioactive quality. So supposedly, there's no actual long-term damage, but everything inside the area that is affected turns into a very small thing. So like if you can imagine a spherical type of halo that goes and just pops in on itself, and then everything inside that halo just gets squished down to a very small size, and then whatever else is around it is just a crater of what would have been there outside of that bubble. What we've said here, I think it's very, very unlikely that anything like this is going to happen. But some of the things that are being worried about right now is that there could be a 6th gen attack from this country against the U.S. and possibly others. If those attacks take place, if those attacks actually do happen, it's a tremendous, tremendous issue. It's a tremendous damage, and it could be very sizable. However, because I'm the ET guy, right? Let's go back to the slide real quick. Benevolent ETs have prevented all other attempts of anybody trying to do this kind of stuff with these kind of weapons. So I want to be very clear about this. There have been so many instances where plans like this were made, where weapons like this were getting ready to be deployed, and then there is high-level, if you will, extraterrestrial or something in a craft, we don't know who they are or where they are from, something shows up, appears over the installation where these weapons are, powers them all down, and then leaves and everything comes back on. Or in the case of around 1991, 92-ish, or 1991, somewhere in that vicinity, everything that we had on all different sides all got melted down and became non-radioactive. Now, there's a number of astronauts that have talked about this phenomenon. It's fascinating. It's true. As weird as it sounds, this is apparently happening. We do have what I believe are good guy, benevolent ETs, good guys and gals, that are helping us. I think what we're going to learn here is that we're not alone in the universe, and we're not alone on Earth, and there's actually a number of civilizations who are visiting us now and who have our best interest in mind, because there are universal laws where we are not allowed to destroy our planet. We are not allowed because there's so many other cultures that are actually here. So one of the most eye-opening things, which of course is one of my big wish list things, is disclosure. And when we find out how much we're not alone, how much we're already a Star Trek society, how we already have bases on other planets, we already have bases on the moon, we already have interactions with a wide variety of extraterrestrial cultures, and they want to help us. But they just need us to go through this collective awakening. It is truly brilliant, the way that this thing has unfolded, that there's this collective awakening, this flowering of consciousness taking place, where people are finally seeing something I've been trying to talk to you about for so long. And sweetheart, did we have like how many people are watching right now? Curious.
12,000.
12,000, wonderful. All right.
But I got the time wrong on the email, so more people will be...
Oh, okay, we got the time wrong on our email, so more of you will be coming soon enough, or you can watch it afterwards. So it's really important now to think about the bigger picture of where this is all going. Because the politics thing is one thing, but it's a lot more than politics. It's a lot more than just defeating this negative group. If this negative group is behind the UFO cover-up, and then they get defeated, what do you think is going to happen to the UFO cover-up? It's probably not going to continue very long. So we are on the threshold of multiple, what I would call civilization-defining events. Events that actually change everything that we thought we knew about life on Earth, and there's been several of those this past year alone. But I think the ones that are coming are even bigger and even more exciting. So despite the fact that there is potential disruption of a short-term basis that we're all going to have to go through, despite the fact that probably a lot of people are going to be really scared, I don't think that this is a bad thing. I think it's a necessary process. But also, it might take longer than I expect, and it might not be as easy as I expect. So the worst case paranoid scenarios are that this particular country that has some of these assets might try this. They might just be angry and just try one of these attacks. And unfortunately, if there was no benevolent ET interference, there's a possibility that they could do something fast enough that we couldn't catch it and stop it. However, if they did do that, then because the force on the U.S. side is much larger, there's nothing left. Back to the slide, yeah, that's the next thing I said. They'd have nothing left if they tried this. And we really do not know what is going to happen, folks. I'm not feeling, as a psychic, right? Because what else have we got? I got dreams. I got occasional briefings, which are not very specific most of the time. And then I'm doing the same due diligence that you guys are out there online, looking for the same information, right? So we don't really know. We don't know if anything's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know if, is it just going to be that they railroad this thing through? You can expect tomorrow, if they railroad it through, if they don't hear any of the evidence, then we're looking at this thing happening pretty quick, probably within a few days. If they do allow the hearing to take place, then we might get an extension where we get to hear evidence over the course of a few days. And back to the slide again, this massive military buildup that we've been talking about, and I'm going to show it to you again in just a few minutes here. It's very likely that this military buildup is positioned for the mass arrests and not just to defend us against some kind of an invasion. When this event takes place, as I just was saying before, it's probably going to be correlated with internet, telephone, and power outages in various areas. And if you still don't believe all of this stuff that I've been telling you, going back to December 8th, we showed you this massive buildup already in position. It was on the Hal Turner website from basically, you can do this research yourself. So the headline here says, ominous, U.S. positioning naval vessels off east and west coasts, massive troop movements in the continental United States. Thank you, everybody, for pointing out what CONUS means. Continental United States. So here was the link once again. I did show you this before, so I'm just going to go through it quickly because I know you guys don't like repeated material. We get some millennials who really get mad about repeated material, and we don't want to make you guys sad, I'd hate for you to be sad. I'm sorry. I'm just having fun with you. You can be sad if you want to be. It's all right. But yeah, this is repeated material. Here we go. Late Saturday, December 5th, no fewer than 25 C-17 aircraft were in the skies over the USA. These are massive aircraft carriers. They carry troops, equipment, personnel, everything. Carrying troops and equipment from around the nation, all going to Nellis, which is way over there next to the west coast. West Coast coverage, right? Right where it needs to be. Also late Saturday, no fewer than 12 C-130 aircraft were also on the move, also all heading into Nellis. These are also some of the biggest airplanes we have. On Sunday, locals on and around Nellis reported the base was swarming with soldiers and Marines. They also reported seeing a vast array of land vehicles for fighting coming out of cargo aircraft. This is very serious. This morning, according to the U.S. Naval Institute, it's official, you can go look it up, the Navy has deployed 3 aircraft carriers, plus a landing helicopter dock, or LHD, off the U.S. West Coast, and 2 more aircraft carriers and their strike groups, plus another landing helicopter dock off the U.S. East Coast. Now, what is a landing helicopter dock used for? They are used to move large numbers of troops. So one of the things that you might see is the Chinook helicopter. The Chinook helicopter has this body with 2 sets of propellers on it, right? And so there's a lot, it holds a lot of room. It holds a lot of cargo. And that cargo could be equipment, but it could also be troops. So one of the things that you could see is Chinooks and other types of large helicopters going on and off these boats, which are literally right off the coast of San Francisco and Los Angeles, flying the troops in to do targeted missions inside the continental United States, because if you invoke the executive order, as we've talked about, everybody's hearing about this, the 2018 executive order that was signed, this is what it was put in place if there was a problem with the next election. And now it looks like they expected that there would be a problem, so they actually designed this executive order to have all this stuff, all these tools that can be used, and that includes the ability to invoke the powers of the military to solve this kind of a problem. So if you don't think that this matters or that none of this means anything, that these boats are out there, believe me. Okay, so let's look back to the slide. Off the west coast, he says, is the USS Carl Vinson in the Pacific, not at port. It's floating in the ocean along the Washington-Oregon border. That's Silicon Valley, that's big tech, okay? So here's the USS Vinson. The USS Essex, which is a landing helicopter dock off the coast of San Francisco. Probably a whole lot of folks from certain companies will find themselves all of a sudden being invited for a nice little impromptu visit on this boat before they get relocated to some other place down in Cuba, let's say. That's probably what's going to be happening here on this boat in the next, I don't know how long. I don't know when it's going to be. Don't say next few days, because we don't know when it's going to be. We don't know. Could be any time. And the USS Theodore Roosevelt and its strike group off the coast of Los Angeles. Now, this isn't even all the boats, folks. These are major, major movements that cost, billions of dollars ultimately to be able to position all this. It's massive. Off the East Coast, back to the slide again, are the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower off the coast of Connecticut. That's New York, that's Wall Street, and that's, a lot of other things right in the area, including D.C., of course, right? So here's the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, all loaded up. The USS Gerald R off the coast of New Jersey with its full flotilla, you know, and so once again, big movement. And the USS Iwo Jima off the coast of South Carolina. So there you have it right there. And I believe, yeah, this is another one of those landing helicopter docks, okay? So when they have one of these, they can move a lot of helicopters, which means a lot of very targeted operations at very low altitude that nobody knows what's going on. They go in, they go out. It's very quick, it's very quiet. So here you're seeing right now the buildup, okay? 2 massive detachments on the west coast and 2 more massive detachments on the east coast. And then when we look around the other area in question, we see that we have another landing helicopter dock there in Japan. We have the Ronald Reagan there. We have the Macon Island ARG and the Nimitz CSG. These are massive, okay? So I don't know why anybody would want to do anything, because this is a superior force and it's going to be very nasty. So the other thing that I have heard from Pete Peterson a long time ago, one of my insiders who's now not with us anymore, is that these ships might be loaded with unexpected technology. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, you say landing helicopter dock. Oh, right, David, and you're talking about how they were flying around your house and your buddy was worried because, you know, the spotlight was going into the house. Yawn, yawn, yawn. It's just helicopters. It might not just be helicopters, folks. Pete Peterson told me a couple of years ago that they were going to bring all these aircraft carriers back into port in the United States and quietly were fitting them out with new advanced technology that the public doesn't even know about. And this apparently includes a technology called masking, where you might hear something going by, if at all, but you don't see it. There's an electromagnetic bottle where light bends around the object and you don't see it anymore. It's cloaked. That's what most people would think of it as, cloaking. The technical term is masking. So is it possible that these landing helicopter docks and aircraft carriers are actually carrying unconventional stuff that we don't know about, that may make not very much noise, if any noise, and that may be able to go in and out not visible? You don't see them, but they can go in, do a mission, and leave. And if that's true, then a lot of stuff is going to happen that nobody even knows unless these people end up getting brought to trial. There's a whole lot of stuff that could happen that's very quiet that you might never know about. So I just want to put that out there, because I had many discussions with Pete about new technologies that were going to be put on these carriers and the things that you can do with them. I mean, we have this stuff already. We have the ability to fly missions that don't make any sound, that you can't see, and it's only going to be visible once people come outside of the bubble. So like if you actually got to see this and one of these lands, the soldiers would suddenly become visible after they walk a certain number of feet away from the object. Up until then, you don't even see them. So that would make it very interesting. We don't really know what they're going to do, but I think they have plenty of resources, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. All right, so let's go back to the slide again. This is from the Hal Turner thing that was on, whatever it was, December the 8th. Given these new naval deployments and the very large, sudden movement of troops into Nellis Air Force Base, one gets the impression that the United States is preparing to defend its homeland from actual invasion. Hint, that may actually be the case. We talked about this. The word in intelligence circles is that if the Supreme Court voids any or all of the November 3rd E, I'm going to still use that word, sorry, due to the massive F and violations of the U.S. Constitution with changes to E laws and the lawless extension of voting for weeks in violation of 3 U.S.C. 1 and 2, the Dems are planning on asking the UN to invade, to depose blank as a dictator. Now, if that is what happens, if it is the UN, who do you think they're going to use? The same country I've been telling you about. That's the whole point. They would try to say, oh, it's the UN because this guy is so evil and he won't give it up and he won't let go of the presidency. Why won't he leave? Let's just go and get him out. You know, let's just get him out. That's what they're worried about, folks. This is all very serious stuff. There is also, back to the slide, there's also word within intelligence circles that the states of California, Oregon, and Washington, plus New York, might actually try to break away from the Union if blank gets 4 more years and may need to be forcibly brought back under U.S. control, the same way renegade southern states were handled back in the 1860s Civil War. I'm not sure if I believe this or not. I think that what's about to happen is evidence coming forward that's going to rock everybody to their core, and there's going to be, it looks very much from all the briefings, including the stuff that's publicly available that you're going to see with me in a minute here. This is coming in fast. We're not waiting very long. And in fact, back to the slide, the war is already happening now. They're already fighting. There's already firefights going on. They're just not talking about it. And the firefights are in the form of these various suspicious accidents. We talked about the one that happened on December 9th, where right in the middle of where all these irregularities took place in the key state of Michigan, an F-16 crashes, and this is one of ours, and it's very oddly timed, and we talked about that before. That was on December 9th. Then the very next day, we talked about a possible strike against troops that apparently were hidden here. Supposedly there was 50,000 of them in an underground base in a remote area of the state of Maine, which is huge and mostly unpopulated. And it was supposedly listed as an earthquake. Now there's been another really weird one. On Christmas Day, 2020, in Nashville, Tennessee, a mysterious and hidden AT&T data hub center got involved in a big explosion and was completely destroyed. So it says here from CNN, no less, AT&T working to restore outages after Nashville explosion. And then from this same CNN article, they linked to this tweet where Shimon Prokopex says, "Well, now I know what it's like to have no cell service and no way to communicate. I landed in Nashville, and because of the explosion, none of my phones worked. Nice strangers let me use their phones. This is anxiety-inducing, and it gets even worse. The hotel landlines aren't working either." So we got 3,600 likes. Yeah, that's pretty good, you know. So, okay. Yeah, so everybody lost power to their phone. They didn't get what they wanted. Then a couple days later, the Nashville mayor believes that the explosion targeted AT&T's infrastructure. This, of course, is one of many speculations of foul play. Because think about it. If the actual local government representatives are already saying this appears to be an attack against the infrastructure and it's an explosion, oh yeah, we're just supposed to act like nothing happened and this is no big deal, just a normal routine event. Well, now we go back to our friend Mike at this particular website. I said his name before, I just don't want to keep saying it because he's got a lot of enemies on this platform that we're using right now. They've banned him everywhere. He was one of the first people after Alex to get totally banned by everybody. I've somehow managed to avoid that just by not doing very much. But this might be the last one, folks. I have no idea. Anyway, Mike, we really like what he's doing. We're listening to him almost every day now. He's got his own platform. Brighteon is his website where you can upload. And we fall asleep to him sometimes. That's true. We both lie down on the couch and we just pass out. His voice is very hypnotic. But I try to stay awake because it's really important stuff. Anyway, this is one of his articles, and there's a link on there you can copy down if you want to go look for it. Nashville explosion was actually a M strike, and the target was the AT&T NSA hardened switching facility spy hub. Now, I will say that this was the initial speculation, but then it changed very quickly from the idea of something that flies through the air kinetically as an object to a beam. And so what you're seeing here, and you can go onto this site and look for this yourself. I couldn't download the video and make it work as an animation, but I want to show you these images from the video. This is what everybody's so excited about, or concerned about, depending on how you look at it. Excited because it means these enemies are almost out of time. Right before you see this huge burst take place in the raw footage, you see this weird beam come out of the sky where the red circle is. And what I noticed when I watched the footage is that the beam drifts to your right. So it drifts to the right. So if you look at right now that white line that goes next to the telephone pole, and you see how the white line, you see where that white line merges with the telephone pole? You see that it touches the telephone pole and where it's touching? When you look at the next image here, you see that the line has moved. It's moved off to the right. And if you actually watch the video, it's much better than what I could show you this way because it actually glides. You can watch it gliding. So here it is off to the right. Here it is again on the left. And here it is again once it's moved off to the right. Now, right after this, immediately after the images that you see here, there's this big, big burst of fire. And that's when it goes up. If you don't think that they have something like this, then you're a fool. I mean, obviously they do. And obviously, this is another example of things getting caught in action. There are many, many examples of suspicious fires. We've looked at the Australia fires. We've looked at the fires on the west coast of California. This is probably how it's being done, honestly. How hard is it to make a microwave, you know, and play the game like cruel little bullies would do when they burn ants with a magnifying glass, right? It's the same concept. So I totally believe that this could be possible, that that was some kind of an attack. And then you got to wonder, like, well, what is the deal? Why would they attack this nondescript building? First of all, who is they? Who did the attack? And why did they do the attack? Well, if it is an attack at all, because of course the conventional view is, oh, it's just this guy, and he's a lone nut, and he was worried about the 5 letter of the alphabet, I'm not going to say it, 5L, okay? Think about that. He was worried about 5L. He's worried about the 5L towers, and so he wanted to get rid of everything. Well, a lot of times these are coordinated where they will find somebody who is susceptible and will go into position and then actually carry something out, but then they piggyback other things on it, like this beam. Okay, so it's very likely that there was something in the van and the beam working together simultaneously, basically. Or that the beam might have set off what was in the vehicle. Okay? Well, this is very cool. One of the other things that Mike pointed out is that the front of the building, if you actually look for this on Google Street View, they've blurred it out. This is what you actually see right now today, or at least it was when he did this a few days ago, when you look for this particular area on Google Street View. And so the speculation on the inside track is that this was a hub that was critical to the alliance. In other words, they were probably using this. The speculation has been that they were using this to get into certain machines that were used in a certain recent tallying of people's opinions nationally, right? They were using this to get into these machines and do the audits and do the forensics and find out the information. So that destruction forced the alliance, most likely, and we don't really know. There's been no solid briefings on this, but it appears that the destruction forced the alliance to do this have to reroute how they're doing this and use other methods. So there's a lot of speculation about that. But anyway, back to the slide again. Everything has now reached the boiling point. And I'm even arguing that this sighting that we had on January the 4th may have been related to ongoing skirmishes that are taking place, because part of this does involve Space Force. So remember, I look up and then I was like, oh, smack. And you can see this very beautiful blue image of what looks like a boomerang or something right on the video. And then you watch the thing, you can actually watch it go crash down into the ocean. And then the people that did this intel said that there was another smaller white craft following the big one. So if that's true, that we have this double thing going on where there's like 2 machines, 2 different machines, one of which is blue, one of which is white, and they have different sizes, and yet the white one was following the blue one. Well, this could very well be something that's owned by the country that we've been talking about against something that is from the U.S. side of things. So that is certainly a possibility. We cannot rule out anything at this point, and we've been hearing a lot of chatter about the idea. In fact, I was going to do a video before telling you guys, you know, this might turn into a UFO war. Just putting that out there, you know, as silly as that sounds, it might turn into UFOs fighting each other and we get to see it. Well, what if off the coast of Hawaii there are bases under sea? And what if this craft is going down into the ocean to return to its base? And what if it's only fully safe once it gets back there and it was being pursued and it managed to get away? That's what I think is happening, actually. So again, tomorrow, January the 6th, back to the slide, is a very, very big day. This is where everything's coming to a head, folks, because these e-votes are going to be officially certified in Congress. And again, going back to what Google has to say, there is one link there on the right about it. They plan to reject the Electoral College, a number of senators, and it all leads up to this inauguration on the 20th. So we only have a very short time for all of this to happen. Think about it, folks. It's now or never. All these things I've been telling you all these years about the alliance. I've been doing this since 2009. I've been telling you about mass arrests. All these things that are coming into view that we've been talking about for such a long time. If they don't do this now, it's going to be too late. If they don't have the control of the office, then there's much, much less that can be done. And so they really feel like they need to do it now. They feel like they're out of time, that there's no other way to go about this, that this is an essential element of the story. So I really do want you to be aware of this, and I don't want you to just be in denial and act like nothing's going on. Back to the slide again. One of the signs that this is a very, very tense moment is a public, you're going to see this, I believe, ABC again, 340 National Guard troops positioned in D.C. So here it is, ABC News Politics. D.C. Mayor Bowser urges calm as some 340 National G troops are being activated while the city prepared for potentially violent protests surrounding Congress's expected vote to affirm President-elect Joe Biden's victory. So there you have it, 340. This is absolutely real. Now, some of the briefings that we're getting are really dire, but multiple dreams that I've been having suggest that this is not going to be too bad. As scary as it is, as much as I personally am feeling almost like the leap, this is the leap of faith, okay? This is the moment that we all have to kind of like trust our deepest inner knowing, our deepest inner guidance, and really, really get to a point in ourselves. Let's go over here. And really, really get to a point in ourselves where we claim back our sovereignty. That's what this is about. We cannot allow this kind of chicanery, this kind of madness to go on unopposed. And honestly, I think as people learn more and more, everybody's going to be behind this. Now, what do I mean as people learn more and more? Well, we're 1 hour in now, and I wanted to make sure that I spent enough time to get you this information because there's been a very, very significant development. You've heard me talking about certain topics ever since I first came out and wrote an article about this stuff in 2007. 13 years ago is when I went public about this group that has various names. The Illumin, you've heard the rest of that. I don't have to say the whole thing. The DS, which is deep, you know what the S stands for, deep blanc. So you got DS, and then you have another term, cabal. Okay, we've used that term. I'll just use the DS as a pretty standard one. The dreams that I'm having are telling me this is not going to be too bad. I've had a number of dreams that show what seems to be pretty smooth, fairly smooth process. And again, all that stuff about the dreams and how I do it is in here. So like, I think that there's a pretty good credibility track record here about my dream data and it being prophetic. And again, most of what's happening now is described in various forms in this book. And it suggests that it's going to work out. And again, the really cool part is that there are these higher beings out there, and they are looking out for us. They're going to protect us. They're going to make sure that this works, and that's why they haven't allowed there to be a nuclear war. Because they can prevent these things from happening. They can prevent 6th gens from being used. They can prevent huge swaths of any part of the world from being wiped out. Even if those weapons might have worked in other places, they would only work here if they were allowed to work. And then you got to get into how do these higher beings and how do these benevolent beings work in the universe? Well, by the time Jesus showed up 2,000 years ago, he was very politically involved, and a lot of people tend to forget this. Julius Caesar, Caesar Augustus, the Caesars of the time were the Roman emperors, and Jesus was directly facing off against them. He was overturning tables where they were taking money in that he felt was unjust, that they were charging for things they shouldn't charge for. to get into the temples. They should be free. And what you ultimately see is a political persecution by the Roman government, ordered by the emperor of Rome himself, Caesar, to have the crucifixion take place. What shocked everyone so much, if you believe that this did happen, is that Jesus somehow dies on the cross, goes into the tomb, comes out 3 days later, and people don't even recognize him. He looked different, and he was apparently glowing, but he actually had to show wounds on his hands to certify that it was still him. Now, there's some people out there who make videos, and they're very, very cynical about religion. They're very, very cynical about Christianity. And they certainly, those types of people think that it's all a myth, that nothing really happened. However, it seems highly unlikely that all of these accounts and these stories occurred in a vacuum where somebody just fabricated the information. There's no truth behind it. To me, it seems far more likely that the events did take place because of the sheer galvanizing impact that it had upon the Roman government of the day, such that they had to actually put him to death publicly in front of everybody. You can't cover that up. A miracle man who's walking on water and multiplying loaves and fishes, doing all this cool stuff, water into wine. If that kind of thing is happening, if he was able to do spontaneous healings on people, then it would be a threat. And when Jesus was talking about the problems in society at that time, a lot of people are unaware of the fact, as I talk about in my second book, Synchronicity Key, that Rome had essentially conquered this nation of Carthage in the Punic Wars. There's 3 Punic Wars to look at that involve Carthage. Carthage openly, and this in the history books, anybody can find this, Carthage openly was involved in worshiping deities like Baal and Moloch, evil beings that they would offer sacrifices to. These are sacrifices of people and children and infants. It's publicly known that this was done. And what isn't necessarily publicly known is that apparently after the Romans conquered Carthage, they discovered that the entities the Carthaginians were in contact with are real, that the practices are real, that you can use these practices and you can get these entities, these real beings that are what we would now think of as extraterrestrials. You can get them to work for you. You can get them to do things for you. And this is stuff that would enable you to seize power on planet Earth, enable you to hurt people, enable you to do evil stuff. So apparently there are these practices that are very ancient, that go back to Carthage, that Rome then took in. And even before Jesus showed up, in 54 BC, you already have Julius Caesar starting to make his first expeditions to England. So this is something that we've talked about so many times, that the 3 main power centers of this organization are nation-states within nations. City of London is the spiritual center. City of London in England is the financial center. Vatican City is the spiritual center, and then Washington, D.C. was traditionally the military center. Each of these centers is marked by a very large obelisk, and supposedly one of the things I've heard from these insider briefings is that they use the shadow of the obelisk as like a sundial. And when they're going to do one of these targeted attacks that look like it's something that was an accident or that it was blamed on somebody else, but they were actually responsible for it, supposedly one of the things they do is they have the shadow from the obelisk pointing at the disaster at the moment that it takes place. I haven't actually done this due diligence. Maybe you can if you're interested, but other people have, and my insiders shared this with me, that there are many, many examples where the shadow of the obelisk is pointing in the direction of where some horrible thing takes place, because again, it's black magic. This is what these people do. They like it, and they believe that it is necessary to access these beings and get these beings that they can potentially dial up to do something for them that will help them. And if you start thinking about the idea of, yeah, well, I kind of believe that extraterrestrials exist now, and sure, yeah, I could buy that some of them are evil. I could buy that some of them are very, very evil. So why wouldn't they want to work with certain people on Earth who are sympathetic to their agenda? Well, that's apparently what's going on here. These Carthaginian practices, these Carthaginian gods, were assimilated by Rome and were then brought out from Rome to England, beginning again 54 BC. Julius Caesar starts to settle there. City of London becomes the financial center. Washington, D.C. becomes the military center. Apparently, these people never stopped using the Carthaginian old religion. Jesus came and he was opposing them. He opposed Rome. The Roman emperor is the one that put him down. And then when they couldn't control the spread of this as it goes on for hundreds of years, by 325 AD, 325 years after year one, which is supposedly when Jesus was born, supposedly 325 AD, it's such a big problem now, I'm speculating, that it's been such a big problem for Rome that what they had to do is bring all these different folks together. Let's go back to the center camera here. They bring all these different folks together to folks who have different pieces of what we now call the Bible, right? This guy has a piece of the book of Matthew. This guy has the book of John. This guy has, well, he has the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Well, we can't use that one, so some of them were thrown out. The Gnostic Gospel of Thomas was thrown out. The Gospel of Mary Magdalene was thrown out of the Bible. And these books say some really weird stuff. Like the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas says, apparently quotes Jesus saying, "If thou art to enter the kingdom of heaven, and thou art male, thou must become female. And if thou art female, thou must become male." Now, does this literally mean transgenderism? No. But I think what it's talking about is, because he always speaks in parables, it's a metaphor of the concept of balancing your masculine and feminine energy, having a unified handle on both types of tendencies in the personality, the active principle and the loving principle, you know, the masculine and the feminine. And both of them are very important. So we're talking about this old religion, and it is so hilarious that they are trying to deny that there's anybody practicing this old religion when they've been spending billions of dollars a year advertising it. So many Hollywood movies that we've been talking about that just are bombarding you with these symbols. Symbols like the square and compass. Symbols like the black and white tile floor. Symbols like the Masonic arch. Symbols like the all-seeing eye. And it goes on and on. There's a whole series of these symbols that will appear in various films, and along with the agenda. And we've seen it in the Super Bowl halftime shows. We've seen it in the Olympics opening and closing ceremonies. We've seen it in the Grammy Awards, the musical ceremonies, over and over and over again. Images of people covered in blood, images of people on fire, tons of images of people dancing around with the horns on, half naked, covered in blood. It goes on, and it's in these supposedly socially acceptable things like the Grammy Awards, and you see outrageous stuff. And I don't even want to go through all of it again, because you've heard this stuff before. There's so much of this information out there online that, in all honesty, it's fear that stops people from looking at this. It's not a lack of evidence. There's tons of evidence. The evidence is voluminous, it's easy to find, and even with how much censorship is going on and how many things are being deleted, there's millions and millions of people who will never forget what they've learned, and they will never stop fighting. So I really don't think there's any way that this negative agenda could work, but they sure did give it one heck of a try. Now, one of the people who is right in the core team here, around the president of this country, is a man named Wood. His last name is Wood, and his first name's Lynn. I'm not going to say those words back to back. But Mr. Wood has been making these amazingly bombshell tweets. I started really paying attention to it about December 30th. Here he is. He is supposedly, if you read what's already out there online, he is working as an attorney for the president. He's not the only one, and he might not be doing anything actively right now. I'm not entirely sure. But, you know, there's plenty of pictures you can find of seeing him as a lawyer. And here he is with his law firm on the left. As of January the 4th, Lynn is the first big name to have fully crossed the line and start saying things that I've been telling you since 2007. It seems hard to believe, but here it is. And I'm going to have to read this very carefully because I can't say everything. Okay? And I'm going to have to do a lot of this kind of stuff. In fact, I might not even read all of it. I don't know. I believe Chief Justice John and a multitude of powerful individuals worldwide are being blackmailed in a horrendous scheme involving R and M of children captured on you know what. I have the key to the files containing the videos. I have also shared this information. And you can see here 58,700 likes at the time it was taken in, 26,000 retweets. That's huge. This is another one that came in on the 4th that was sent to me before I started to do a lot more work on this, where he said, this tweet was an insurance policy. The evil forces behind this B scheme, sorry, I'm going to have to do this, of C, R, and M need to know that others have the encryption key. Whoa! I have a procedure in place. If I die in the near term or if any member of my family is harmed or threatened, the key will be released by many. This is astonishing because when we get down to the brass tacks here, what is he actually saying? If you go in there and you dig in, what he's saying is they've got videos of a massive number of DC Beltway elites and others that are centrally involved in the running of this nation doing horrendous things, as we just talked about what those things are. R and M. It doesn't get any worse than this. But this is not the first time that he dropped a huge bombshell. And so we're going to start tracking this because it's such a big story, and I don't know if anybody else is going to have the courage or the desire to report on all this like I'm about to do here. And maybe it's really freaking dumb for me to be doing this. I don't know, but I want you to at least read these. Even if I can't really say all the words, I want you to look at it, okay? Let's just go through it together because I think it's important. So the first big bombshell was on December the 30th. And this, I mean, Elizabeth and I really spent a long time talking about this one. He told us that E is alive. And you can see who E is. And you can think about it. The guy that had the island, okay? Just think about it. If you're not watching the video, hopefully this all makes sense to you. If you're just listening to this on an audio level. So then he says, so by the way, he's totally going after Roberts here, like big time. One tweet after another, just bam, bam, bam. Then he says a couple more questions for Chief Justice John. Number 1, you are recorded discussing Justice Scalia's successor before the date of his sudden demise. How did you know Scalia was going to die? Number 2, are you a member of any club or cabal requiring minor children as an initiation fee? Whoa! That is some serious, full-blown cowboy, I'll shoot the holster off your cowboy pants gunfight stuff, man. This is a big frickin' deal. And so then when we look at what he says after this, the next tweet that he responded to this one with, we're going to zoom in on that part up at the top now. Okay, look at this. My information from a reliable source is that Roberts arranged an illegal adoption of 2 young children from Wales through Uncle Jeff. I think we can all agree that Uncle Jeff knows about this horrible stuff that starts with a P. If only Jeffrey blankety blank was still alive. Wouldn't that be something? All right, whoa, 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 stop right there. This guy is an attorney, folks. He's an attorney. Do you think for 1 minute that he would ever say something like this if he couldn't prove it, if he didn't know that the proof was already available? He says in the radio interviews that he's been doing that he has 3 different high-level sources confirming that this man, as odious and horrible as this seems to be, is actually still alive. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that one in a minute, but let's go back to the slide. So wouldn't that be something? Then right after this, he says, people ask me, how much information do you have? And remember, this is the president's own attorney, folks. This is not just, quote-unquote, some guy. Forget about the fact he doesn't have the check mark. Okay, this is the real guy. And he's not crazy. He says, people think I'm crazy. I'm not crazy. Everything I'm telling you is true, as I understand it. So he says, people ask me, how much information do you have? The answer is enough. Enough is always enough. Always has been, always will be. Every lie will be revealed. The president is a truth giver. When the president speaks, listen carefully, very carefully. Pray for our country and our president. Pray for all. So then, the next thing that he said the same day, these all came out, and look at the 80,000 likes. See that heart down there? 80K? 30.1 thousand retweets? Holy smokes. He says, I am 100% confident that if the VP or members of Congress spent 15 minutes reviewing the contents of the HB computer, I'm not even going to say that word, they would never let Joey Bribes B get within missile range of the White House. B is a blankety-blank puppet, a criminal, and a perv. A few other things too, none of them good. Now what did he say? He said he has plenty of evidence. So obviously, this evidence is going to come out, folks. And he is not speaking from anything other than a position of knowing. Now look at this. President blankety-blank and Barron are rumored to be masterful chess players. Great father-son photo. Obviously, he's talking about something besides chess. Chess is a metaphor, in case you can't figure that out. They're masterful chess players. Great father and son photo. The president does have that look that conveys Barron made an impressive move, but one the president anticipated. We shall check the status of his fame, i.e. the president, on or about 1/6/21. We shall check the status of his fame on or about 1/6/21. And this is in the context of saying that he and his son are masterful chess players. This conforms with all these data points that we're going to get some kind of declassification, some kind of big surge of new information that's going to be sickening and horrible, but will help us heal. Then, because people didn't get it, back to the slide again, Mr. Wood, a day later, repeated the same message with a different tweet because people didn't pick up on it, I guess. So look at this one. December 31st, this was his New Year's Eve gift. I am fully aware of the onslaught of attacks being made against me based on my revelations about Chief Justice John. Before attacking me, maybe fair-minded people would first ask John to tell the truth. Or ask Jeffrey E. He is alive. 138.1 thousand likes. 61.8 thousand retweets. Which means that when people retweet something, everybody else sees it. Everybody that's a subscriber of theirs, unless you're getting banned, of course. But like, theoretically, so this is what I'm saying, folks. This is not some, oh yeah, it's called Divine Cosmos. It's David Wilcock, right? He's a UFO guy. Yeah. No, this has become much bigger than, oh yeah, it's one of those videos online. This is the frickin' attorney for the president. And this is what he's saying, and it's got 138,000 people that clicked the like button and 61,000 people that retweeted it. This thing has just gone viral. The Kraken has been released. It's out there, and it's tearing things up now. The public is learning the truth each day that goes by as people who are brave enough to report on this, like me, do that work. More and more people become aware of the irrefutable evidence that this is true, that this has been going on the whole time, and that we need to do something about it. So back to the slide again. Wood's radio show linked, when he did these radio shows, these fireside chats that are on his Twitter page, you can click on those and listen to them. They're fascinating. He's a very good speaker. Then they have these show notes that you can get by going to the website. And so the show notes give these links that back up the things he said. So regarding Jeffrey, here is a link from International Business Times, which, believe it or not, is a mainstream media publication out of India. This is the Indian mainstream media, folks. This is not fringe. It's very, very mainstream. And you can see the name of the person who wrote it. I can't really see it too close here. We'll see it in the next slide. But anyway, zooming in on this on the right now. just on that part in the middle. Is Jeffrey E. still alive? Drone footage shows a look-alike at his compound. We're going to see that picture. It's pretty shocking. Conspiracy theorists baffled. In December last year, transactions were done from E's dormant offshore bank account in the Virgin Islands. We're going to hear about that as well. And of course, but what is the photograph there? Vegan woman drinks S blankety blank to fight C and stay fit. Cringe level 100. Yes, she actually said, please don't waste it. It's so valuable, it's got 200 vitamins. She actually says that, folks. I don't know why they put that with this article, but here you go. Doesn't that guy look familiar down there on the left? Like maybe you've seen him before? Doesn't he look a little familiar? Why would a guy that looks that much like this guy be on his island after he supposedly was gone? So let's read what it says. A conspiracy theory claiming that offender Jeffrey E. is still alive kicked off after an undated drone footage of an E look-alike surfaced on social media. India will talk about this. Nobody over here will. The conspiracy theorists claimed that the American pedo is staying on the infamous island. E was arrested in July 2019 on a number of charges, including trafficking young women and underage girls for gratification between 2002 and 2005. He was supposedly found hanging in his Manhattan jail cell in August last year. The death of the 66-year-old, who had previously attempted suicide on July 23rd, was ruled as a suicide by hanging. And then it says here, a Jeffrey look-alike spotted in drone footage. 2 pictures of him, same day. Now look at this. Transactions done from E's dormant bank account. In February, Daily Mail had reported about transactions being carried out from one of E's dormant offshore bank accounts in the Virgin Islands in the months after his death. Now, who would have gotten access to his accounts if not him? The documents, well, you could say Ghislaine, okay, that's true, but I mean, it's not very many people this could be. The documents presented in the court revealed transactions of multi-million dollars from E's estate to his bank, Southern County International, after his death. So it went to his bank, not somebody else's. If it was Maxwell, why wouldn't she put it into her own bank account? If she could get access to it and steal it and get away with it, why would it go back into his own account? Even though the territory had sanctioned the bank in 2014, it remained dormant until this evil offender's suicide. Months after his death, listen to this, folks. Try to think about how much money this is. An amount of $15.5 million from E's estate was transferred to the bank in December of last year. The bank sent back $2.6 million, leaving $12.9 million, according to the outlet. So somebody kept $12.9 million transferred out of this account. That is a lot of money. $13 million. I mean, you can buy mansions, you can buy a private jet, and still buy a mansion, and still have money left over if you have $13 million. Okay? It's a lot of money. Before the end of the year, a withdrawal of nearly all funds, leaving only $500,000, was done. Now, who took the money? Who took the $13 million? We don't know yet. The payments were made to cater to day-to-day expenses, including payment for cable, right? So you're telling me you're going to blow $12.4 million in less than a year for day-to-day expenses? BS. Judge Herman Purcell, who oversaw the hearing of the court case over over his remaining assets, had said there is no explanation for it. So, in addition to this data that Wood has linked to, he's also claiming that he has 3 insider sources that told him this is what's going on. So I've listened to all of his most recent radio shows. What does he actually say? What he's saying is that, I mean, you've all probably seen the pictures of the comparisons with the body, where the nose looks all wrong. The body that we were supposedly shown as being Jeffrey has a very obvious curvature on the nose, whereas the actual man has an aquiline nose. It doesn't have that curvature. The ear looks totally different. There's a scar on the forehead that you don't see on the actual offender. And I saw this too, back on these chat rooms, there was a very compelling post the night before Jeffrey supposedly died. about somebody saying that they saw in the middle of the night somebody being transferred out of this maximum security prison, and that there was like they put a bag over him and they wheeled him out really fast, and they didn't want anybody to see it. So what Wood is speculating, the attorney Wood, what he's speculating is that this man was freed by the people who don't want to see him ever die, because there might be dead man switch things where if he dies, then this information gets released, including apparently thousands of videos that he shot on the island where all these guys were coming in and getting caught either knowingly or unknowingly in blackmail. Blackmail where they're filmed doing things, and then that film is used against them to ensure their compliance. This is why they're stealing elections. This is why it can even be possible. Because if they have blackmail on you, you're not going to stand up to them. You're going to do what they ask. And that would include trying to participate in this. So let's go back to the slide now. He's still cranking out these tweets, still blowing our minds. On December 31st, he says, "Breaking news, Patriots. 2020 is almost over. We have seen more clearly what a mess our country is, haven't we? Guided by the Almighty, we the people will clean up the mess in 2021. That will be cause for a real celebration. Happy New Year. God bless you, Lynn." Now, he doesn't say when we will clean up the mess in 2021, but he's not saying it might work. He's saying it's definitely going to happen, and it will be a real celebration when it does. So, here's another one. January 1st. On 12/31/19, I tweeted that 2020 would be the year our country would see more clearly. Now we have seen the mess. On December 31st, 2020, exactly 1 year to the day later, I tweeted that 2021 would be the year our country would clean up the mess in which we find ourselves. It is time to clean our house. Quote, "Many wrongdoers in this country are soon to be brought to justice, and the innocent will be vindicated." How are they going to be brought to justice? It's the positioning of those assets on the East Coast and the West Coast that I've already talked about, and the deployment of those assets in the middle of something that is going to be very traumatic and probably involve no internet, no phone, and probably no power as well. We don't really know. I'm just putting it out there. So you do want to be ready with all the prepper stuff, as I've said for so long. Then he goes, "The tweets about my insanity are at an all-time high this morning. I wonder why. No worries. I am fine. The attacks do not concern me." And then he has a quote here from Vernon Linwood Howard. Quote, "A truly strong person does not need the approval of others any more than a lion needs the approval of sheep." I actually like that because you know what? You are a part of this too. You watching this, you are a human being participating in the internet, participating in living on Earth. And we want to be able to talk, and we want to be able to have freedom to say the things we'd like to say, even if those opinions don't agree with everyone. We should be allowed to talk. I'm not going to try to stop people from having their own opinions. If they maliciously threaten me with opinions on my channel, I'm going to block that from happening because that's a private forum for me. But people should still be allowed to talk somewhere as long as it's decent and not causing all kinds of damage to people. So when he says that a truly strong person does not need the approval of others, that's something we all kind of have to grow up through here, folks. Because everybody is being threatened with, oh, you're going to be shunned. Nobody thinks like you do. Nobody believes this crap that you believe. Nobody agrees with you. Nobody likes you. Nobody likes what you're saying. You're dirty, you're smelly, you're fat, you're ugly, you're too old, you're too out of shape. Ugh. This is what the internet is. It's a free-for-all. It's a killing floor. Let's go over to this camera real quick. It's a killing floor. And I have been subject to this for a very long time, going on, what now, 25 years that I've been online. And from the very beginning, when I first started to read about UFOs and get in these various discussion groups, I was surprised that people were so mean. Like, my gosh, if we really are not alone and there's extraterrestrials here, regardless of their intentions, this is really fascinating. The least we should do is give these researchers the benefit of the doubt, give them a chance to talk about what they know. What do they think they know? You know, let's hear the evidence. But if you just start attacking them as people, and you're not even really looking at their information, you're only like saying, I don't like the way he looks, I don't like the way he talks, I don't like the fact that he's got such a da-da-da-da-da-da, you know, then you're not really listening. So look at how many people obviously have been attacking this man, because he's now attracted the DS, the full force of what they can do, the stalking, the cyber harassment, the doxing, the publication of his private information, attempts to, you know, hurt and intimidate him or his family or kill them. All of this stuff. When he goes out there and he makes this statement, and now, as I said, look at this, look at the tweet again. Let's cut back to that real quick. 96,000 likes, almost 100,000. And he's complaining about people saying that they think he's insane. Obviously, he's not insane. He just has very contentious beliefs that he's arguing. Okay, this one has almost 70,000 likes. And then the big quote here, which is a line art graphic of him, every lie will be revealed. Let's dig into this up close now. Same tweet, just the top. On 5/13/19, actor Isaac, and I'm not going to say the last name, but if I do, it'll be a K. Actor Isaac died after he, quote-unquote, forced himself off a bridge in Arizona. Right. He was 42 years old. His last post on Instagram was, "Beware the man who has nothing to lose, for he has nothing to protect." That would have scared the DS like crazy, because he's got nothing to lose, nothing to protect. Isaac knew the lies. I know the key to his treasure trove of truth. Whoa. And then it gets even more intense. Look at this. Then he responds to it, okay, and makes another one. And then we're going to read that part on the top. I have always seen myself as more of a giver of gifts than a receiver of them. What is he talking about? Giver of gifts? What gifts? Then listen to this stuff. If I had the key to a treasure trove, I would share the key or the treasure with others, but I always try to give to others with discernment. And then he quotes Matthew 22:14, many are called, but few are chosen. I've seen myself as a giver of gifts, more as a giver of gifts than a receiver of them. If I had a key to a treasure trove, I would share it with others. What is he talking about? What treasure trove? What is this about? Well, you got to keep reading, okay? So here he's linking to another one, and the original link is from Land of the Free. It says, new. Pence's lawyer filed a response to Gomer today, basically saying Pence is the wrong person to sue. Da-da-da-da. Okay. Then let's look at the top. Mike Pence should resign immediately unless he publicly states that he will reject electors from states where F has occurred. A man of God would never certify a lie. Every lie will be revealed. Every lie means every lie. Always has, always will. That is very, very exciting. And then, but we're going to get back to this thing about, you know, what is he talking about with the treasure trove exactly? So basically, before we go zoom on from there, this is what I think is going on, folks. Wood made some very contentious statements about Pence, which correlated with images of Jeffrey, okay? Look, I have friends who are out there in D.C., and I've heard from people who know Pence personally. They say he is squeaky clean. He's a really, really, really good guy. They don't think he would ever do anything wrong. So I have a hard time believing this. I'm being honest with you. I'm only reporting on it, but I don't even necessarily believe it. However, for whatever reason, Wood is saying, he makes this statement and he says Pence should certify these or should listen to the arguments and not just certify the election. He's got to listen to the arguments. Well, it appears that Pence has flipped. And so this type of grandstanding, this type of intense counter pressure from Twitter, from Wood, could have a lot to do with why he flipped and why we might actually see some hearings start to happen tomorrow and not just get it railroaded through as being for Joe. So, again, I don't want to dig on anybody too much here. Pence, you know, this is something between him and Pence, but Anyway, let's go on and read more of this. This is January 1st, same time period, right after the last one. A picture of Jeff himself along with Maxwell. There they are. So clearly he's leading you in a direction. He wants you to think of something. 78,000 likes at the bottom. Look at that. This is very, very popular. Everybody's reading this. Chief Justice John and Justice Stephen Breyer should resign from their positions on the United States Supreme Court by noon Eastern tomorrow, January 2nd. This is a lawyer, the president's lawyer, giving you a threatening deadline to resign by noon tomorrow, January the 2nd. Wow. Or what? Well, he's apparently got something that relates to the picture that he put in the tweet. I hear Elizabeth laughing. Yeah, I mean, we're putting the pieces together here. Our Constitution is based on God's laws. Roberts and Breyer are not worthy to interpret our Constitution. But what is this tweet all about, and why does he have this picture in there? And why is he giving them a deadline of noon tomorrow, January 2nd? That's crazy. Obviously, nothing happened. They didn't resign, you know. Okay, but now we're still in January 1st. He says, look carefully at those who are calling me insane and urging my arrest. What is their agenda? Do they have something to hide? And do they not want truth to be revealed? You bet they don't. You will have to make your own choice, at least for now, as to whether you believe in me. Choose wisely. God bless you. Hashtag General Flynn. Look carefully at those who are calling me insane and urging for my arrest. What is their agenda? Do they have something to hide? Yeah, you better believe it. Then he says, wow, I'm getting an increased volume of death threats tonight. Was it something I said? There you go. 96,700 likes. If they mess with this guy, it would be very, very bad. It would be the end, basically. So he's got an insurance policy by how public this is, and that's great. Then January 2nd, right? Now, remember, he'd given them a deadline of noon, okay? Jenna Ellis, who's another one of the president's attorneys, apparently came out swinging against Lynn because look at this. Look at the bottom there where it says Jenna Ellis, and you got the blue check mark, January the 1st, and she says, to be clear, I do not support the statements from Attorney Wood. I support the rule of law and the U.S. Constitution. And yes, you know, Jenna is pointing out that he had made some pretty freaking crazy sounding stuff, some pretty wild statements here. But then he responds politely, because she says, I do not support these statements, I support the rule of law and the Constitution. He says, I support the rule of law and the U.S. Constitution too, Jenna. I was fighting for both 7 years before you were born. Wow, that's some tough talk. I fight for truth too. Truth always prevails. You do support that statement, don't you, Jenna? Wow, this is heavy. These people are arguing publicly, okay? Not everybody agrees on what to do. This is pretty obvious. He might have taken a more radical step than others were ready to do. Then he says on January 2nd again, no official in the state of G is enforcing E-laws. When it comes to the issue of protecting citizens' right to vote in honest election, GA officials have gone to farms to hide. Many judges need to lose their black robes. Many officials need to be recalled. Many need to go to jail. Judges, officials, you name it. I mean, this is really, really big, folks. So then he responds to his tweet from January 1st where he said, and I'm just going to read this, Mike Pence should resign immediately unless he publicly states that he will reject electors from states where fraud occurred. We already went through that one. Now he responds to it again on January the 2nd. He says, and I'm just reading the top now, wow, do you think Pence did not get this tweet? Maybe Mark blocked my tweet for P and did not let him see it. But I suspect he will get the message soon and will either reject the fraud or resign. Better yet, he should reject the fraud and then resign. Truth. Okay, let's talk about this a little bit. Because there's all this stuff about Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. And then Pompeo tweeted a whole bunch of these pictures where he says swagger, swagger, swagger. It appears that if Pence were to step down, Pompeo becomes the vice president temporarily, and at that point he would then call for these hearings to take place where we now get all this evidence put out in the open. So that's what Wood seems to be thinking, is reject the fraud and then resign. But if he doesn't, if he only were to resign, if this is Pence, in other words, if Pence steps down tomorrow, which we don't know yet. I mean, I'm doing this in advance. It's live. But if he steps down tomorrow, then Pompeo is going to carry this thing through. That's what we're expecting. All right. So next, it said, you know, he says Chief Justice John, he's responding to this tweet down here, January 1st. Remember, he gave them a deadline of noon tomorrow, January the 2nd. They should resign from their positions. And they're not worthy to interpret the Constitution. Then he shows this picture of obviously these two people. You can figure out what that's about. Then on January the 2nd, after the deadline passed, this is what he said. We're just going to read the top. I am disappointed. I thought Justices Roberts and Breyer would avoid public scandal and simply resign. Only a fool wants their dirty laundry aired in public. Maybe I should consider filing a formal motion for recusal and hang their laundry on the clothesline to be exposed to sunlight. Okay, now folks, this is something that a lawyer, you got to understand legalese a little bit. When he says he wants to file a motion for recusal and hang their laundry on the clothesline, the motion itself would contain the information that's so contentious that he's threatening and teasing about. And the motion would contain proof. It would contain documentation with proof that supports the allegations and then asks for them to be recused from this court, the Supreme one. Okay? Wow. So he has the power to do that, and that might be what's getting ready to happen. We might learn about these guys from that motion being filed unless they were willing to do something on their own, or maybe some other form of truth comes out. We don't really know, but this is fascinating. Back to the slide now. Now we see the former president with Roberts again, and it says on January 3rd now, and now we're really starting to get into the most intense, heavy stuff, okay? So if you're getting a little bit bored or you're falling asleep, please pay attention. January 3rd, our country must face the truth about its so-called leaders, the good, the bad, and the ugly truth. We must expose swamp inhabitants to the disinfectant of sunshine. No more dirty little inside the beltway secrets. We need truth. These two men do not even tell us the truth about their adopted children. Whoa! You can probably think and extrapolate that, you know, adopting a child doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to keep the child. I'll just leave it there, but that seems to be what he's implying. It's really, really disturbing, okay? I don't know what's going on here. I don't have any information on this. I'm just only responding to what he said and speculating, that's all. Back to the slide again. This is a funny one. It's got the president looking like some dreadlocked hurricane coming in. Right? That's pretty funny. Since you cannot trust communist propagandists of mainstream media to even give you an honest weather forecast, I thought I would provide you with next week's weather forecast map. It sure looks like a storm is heading our way. And notice that the storm itself and the direction of how the mouth and the face is pointed is aimed right at D.C. and that whole East Coast area, okay? So this is a big thing. He says a storm is headed our way. I want to give you next week's weather forecast map. Next week. This is January 3rd. That's not very far away. So obviously January 6th, the possibility of a hearing thereafter. Next week's weather forecast. Whoa. 115,000 likes. Unbelievable. And then same day, shortly thereafter, these are all chronological, okay? With our freedom at risk, we the people are entitled to know the truth. No more games. Pence is a player in the 2020 election. He wants to be POTUS in 2024. Tell the American public what was on that note your wife received at the Bush 41 funeral, Mike. Tell us now. I mean, wow. This guy is so brave. He's so strident. I mean, the wording, the tone, the kind of machismo that's in this. Whew. I'm just reporting on somebody else's fight. I'm not saying I would ever talk like this, because I wouldn't. I'm not that kind of person. But tell the American public what was on the note your wife received at the funeral. We've seen this, if you've looked at this, at the Bush 41 funeral, when that happened, everybody got these brochures, and all the deep state folks were there. And they open them up, and these envelopes come out. And you see the people looking at the envelopes, and these are top names, Bush names, Clinton names, all that kind of stuff. Looking at it, opening it up, reading it, doing the double take, their head goes back like this, that kind of stuff, okay? So it's long been suspected that this is how they got subpoenas into these people, because in the court system, in order to give somebody a subpoena, you have to actually hand them a piece of paper. These wealthy elites will never be served. You'll never know where they are, and they'll never accept it. So they tricked them and got it in there during the funeral that everybody was attending, which are still sealed, right? These are not things that have been revealed yet. We don't know what's on those. We don't know if they're actually court summons, if they're a letter. It's some kind of letter. We don't know what the letter says, but then he says, tell the American public what was on that note your wife received. Tell them now. Whoa. All of these things that we don't know about are getting ready to be told to us. Then he does this. As background to tweets I am about to post, you should read this article carefully. And I will have excerpts from this article at the end. I'm going to show you a few of them. So this is where that article shows up. We'll go back to the article later. I ask that you read each of my tweets carefully and decide if the information conveyed demands that patriots rise up so that every lie will be revealed. So, what is this article? Well, here is the link. And it's the website's called America's Little Girl. Memo warns Attorney General Jeff of VP and Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi after Minnesota court rules on international blankety blank child blank evidence. And you can tell what the blank is, okay? Child evidence. International child blank. All right, so the memo warns Attorney General of Pence and Bondi after Minnesota court. Anyway, you can go read this, but the point is the article says some pretty contentious stuff. Then people came out and attacked the guy that wrote it, and then Lynn would have to issue a retraction saying, you know, I don't support the guy. It's just that some of the evidence there, you know, I agree with, and it was sent to me by a trusted insider. But you can clearly see there's something really weird going on here about people being warned about this child stuff that was going on. Okay? Very, very disturbing. Then here's another one. Somebody that says the hate must stop, warning our team members who live in Atlanta are being attacked. Our team member's home took 5 shots through the windows in a drive-by, right through his daughter's bedroom window. The bias and hate must stop. And then he says this at the top. The price for speaking truth can be high. Ultimately, one's life and the lives of his or her family members and friends can be at risk or lost. I ask for your prayers that Almighty God cover me, my family members, and close friends with Psalms 91 protection. And I believe he will have that, because this is an incredibly brave thing that he's done. Now we're up to January 4th, okay? This is today. This is today. Or no, today's the 5th. This was yesterday. Tomorrow's the 6th. So January 4th, yesterday, he says, I have, and then this is when he really gets going, okay? It's about to really go crazy, folks. I have shared with several individuals the truth I will be speaking to you. Killing me will not prevent the truth from being revealed. It will only trigger its release by many others. I ask the president to immediately appoint an honest special prosecutor to pursue justice. 75,000 likes. Then comes the big one, folks. This is where it really gets wild, and I read this to you before. This is when he dropped the bomb, okay? January the 4th. I believe Chief Justice John and a multitude of powerful individuals worldwide are being blackmailed in a horrendous scheme involving R&M of children captured on video. I have the key to the files containing the videos, and I have also shared this information. Holy smokes. He has the files, he has the videos, and he has an encryption key to unlock them. That is the ultimate mic drop moment. We've never seen anything like this before. Somebody this high ranking, laying it out there, saying, this is what's going on, folks. It's the R&M. It's children. It's really, really bad stuff. Blackmail, horrendous, horrendous things. Then he goes on and on and on talking about it, which is amazing. So Everybody's looked at this. These have had thousands and thousands of likes, millions of views. Undoubtedly, millions of people have read this now. This blackmail scheme is conducted by members of 10 of the world's most well-known and elite blankety-blank intelligence, you know what. One of those groups was hacked by a group known as Lizard S, and I won't say the whole thing just in case. The blackmail files of R&M were obtained by this group, and copy was provided to Isaac. Wow, this is how he responded to the previous tweet that we just read. This is a response to it. So then he went into a lot more detail in his video. And so this lizard group, Lizard S, we'll just call it the lizard group, he explains in his video that this was a group of people who were not the good guys. They were bad kids. They were bad little kids doing hacking and getting into stuff they shouldn't get into. And then apparently they stumbled over some really, really wild stuff that was in one of these agencies, one of the 10, okay? And they decided to turn good because it was so horrifying that whatever crime they were already involved in, they said, we can't do this. We got to get this into the hands of the authorities. They came forward as hackers, and they were actually apparently used and cooperated with for this information that they found. So this is sensational, that a weird little hacker group found something, handed it over to the authorities, and that's part of what is now going to be used as the whole lid gets blown off of this thing. These people do not want the lid to be blown off, and they will do anything to stop that from happening, including bringing the whole world to its knees or ruining the world, which hopefully none of that stuff happens again. So wow, the group, one of these 10 agencies was hacked by a group known as Lizard S. The blackmail files were obtained by the group, and copies were provided to Isaac. Isaac, the actor. Well, my wife Elizabeth and I, we watched the Isaac thing when it first happened. Do you remember that? How many videos we saw when they came out? How many there were? I mean, it was thousands. There was thousands of people that did videos on this after his weird, weird death. So then look at this. This is so sad, folks. It's the most traumatizing tweet of all, okay? And I don't even know if I want to read this out loud. It's so bad. The blackmail targets are approached with a gun, a child, and a video camera. The target is ordered to do one thing on video. The target is then ordered to do something even worse on video. Both of them are very, very bad. The target is then owned and controlled by these blackmailers until the evidence loses its value. 76,000 likes. And if you just actually stop here for a minute and think about how insane this is, that in order to become a politician, in order to play this game, in order to go there, to be a part of the inside crew, that they require you to do this, and that somebody would be crazy enough, insane enough with greed and lust for power that you would actually do something like this so that these people can blackmail you, so that they could then, I don't know, do something like maybe steal something big from the people that just happened, right? Wow. I mean, I've spent time visualizing this and thinking about this, and you know what? I don't want to see these films. If they're available at some point in the future, no. I'm not going to watch them. Elizabeth's not going to watch them. We don't want to know. It's too horrible. It's too gross. I can be aware that these things exist, but I don't want to see them, okay? It's that simple. So then, back to the slide. After Isaac received the hacked files from a member of Lizard S, he gave these files to one friend, and then he gave the encryption key to another friend. He provided this information to his friends shortly before he was murdered on May 13th, 2019. Members of the Lizard S were jailed for hacking. And again, look at the number of likes, 57,000. Unbelievable. So Isaac gave the files to one person and the key to another person, and then gave this information away before his death. And then the very next one, or one of the ones right after this, but same idea, Jeffrey used this same scheme involving blackmail of Child R and Child M to either further his own interests or those of any agency with whom he worked. There you go. We've all known this, folks. Everybody that's a conspiracy theorist knows this. Or they might laugh at you, but now this guy is saying it. It's a big deal now. Everyone who flew on his private jet or visited his island must be immediately interrogated and brought to justice. 80,000 likes. Wow. Then he says, I decided to post this on Twitter and Parler as a wall exists around the president that may have prevented me from getting this evidence to him. This is very disturbing evidence, of course, especially if you can unlock those files and actually watch them. God, I wouldn't want to do it. No frickin' way. Isaac tried to deliver this info to the president, but was then murdered. I do not know who Isaac gave it to for delivery to the president. This is fascinating. 65.9 thousand likes. Everybody's talking about this. I have concerns that information from Isaac was not delivered. Oh, we already did that, yeah. And his effort to get it to the president may have caused his death. That sounds like something he already said. But then he says, I am aware that my life is now at great risk. Not as much when you got 100,000 likes, but he says, I put my faith in God. I prayed before I made this decision. I had to reveal the truth. And honestly, the view count that he's getting, it's so public, it's so out in the open. We've never had anything like this happen before. This has always been rumored. And remember, up until widespread censorship began really last year, 2019 is when it got, or 2018 really is when it got really bad, because now it's 2021. So 2018 is when I and the people in this community, we started to really see this. And remember, folks, all of these censorship things that are happening, the stuff that's getting torn down, I wrote a whole book on this in 2018 called D-Class about what's the event that's getting ready to happen, all this information that apparently is going to be released. It's very contentious. Maybe including some of these videos. I hope, you know, I'm sure they have a plan so that upsetting stuff is not going to get to be seen, because it's a crime to watch these videos. It's illegal. It's very illegal, very criminal. But somehow there will be people who are certified to have seen it, and then we'll probably be hearing it from them. I would never want to look at it myself. Anyway, if this information is out there, you better believe that with all the hint dropping and all the stuff that he's saying, that there's going to be something done about this, and it's not going to go away. Okay? Next one. Again, he says, every lie will be revealed. And then we go up to the top of it here. And he says, now you have greater context for the message I tweeted below on January the 1st. I had hoped that this revelation would trigger resignations and confessions. Unsure of that result, I had to reveal the full extent of my knowledge, and I am doing so now. So he's said it right there. This is the full extent of his knowledge. And then, on January 1st, the tweet that we read on the bottom, he says, again, if I had a key to a treasure trove, I would share the key or the treasure with others. But I always try to give to others with discernment. Well, now we know what the treasure trove was. It's thousands of videos. Thousands of videos, folks. Not 100, not 500, thousands of videos. And then he says, this tweet from January 1st was an insurance policy. The evil forces behind this blackmail scheme of Child R&M need to know that others have the encryption key. I have a procedure in place if I die in the near term or if any member of my family is harmed or threatened, the key will be released by many. And oddly, synchronistically, when I took a picture of it, it was 66.6 thousand likes, 666. Because this is what we're fighting, folks, this evil. So that synchronicity kind of just was like raising an eyebrow to get my attention, I guess. I don't know. It was interesting. As a lawyer, he's now saying that he's done his full due diligence to validate all of these things before he would ever make accusations. Look at this. I would never make an accusation without having a reliable source or sources for it. And he's in his videos, he talks about that he has multiple sources. I would never make an accusation without having a reliable source or sources for it. The stakes are too high. So I did due diligence, very important word, lots of research, to validate the accuracy of the shocking information I am revealing tonight. I am entirely comfortable that you are learning the truth, a truth that explains much. 114,000 likes. Wow. The 10 intelligence agencies who have members employing this scheme of B include CC you know what, C you know what, Mossad, FB you know what, and MI you know what. The others are easily identifiable. The agencies do not know which of them was hacked by the Lizard S group. Isn't that something? 10 intelligence agencies. There you have it. And it's right there. So try to remember this, folks, because everything you're seeing here is probably about to become the biggest news in the history of planet Earth. The biggest shock, the biggest surprise. It's massive, massive, massive what's going on. It's so... I'm totally excited about what's going on here. I do have probably another 50 slides, and I don't want this to take forever, so I'm going to keep plowing through this because he said so much stuff, and I just want you to even just hear what he said. So let's keep going. I have no idea the extent of the blackmail scheme of R and K against children, but given the number of agencies involved, the hundreds of thousands of missing kids, and the otherwise inexplicable actions of many powerful officials, celebrities, and business leaders, I fear the worst. So he says, I don't know how big it is, but I fear the worst. And I think he kind of does know. I mean, the idea is that it's huge. There's many, many, many people who have somehow allowed this to happen to them. I would never allow it to happen to me, no matter what. Okay, back to the slide. Then he says here, the number of missing children worldwide and in the U.S. is staggering, and then he links to this globalmissingkids.org website. Well, let's take a look let's click on that, okay? This is what I did. I was following all his leads. So then it says missing children's statistics, and we get this slate here, which it says one missing child is too many. The lack of a common definition of missing child and a common response to the issue results in few reliable statistics on the scope of the problem around the world. Even with this challenge, we know that, and then we go into all these. 20,000 reported missing in Australia every year, 45,288 reported missing in Canada every year, 100,000 reported missing in Germany, 96,000 in India, 1,984 a year in Jamaica, 45,000 a year in Russia, 20,000 a year in Spain, 112,853 missing kids every year in the UK, and 460,000 in the United States every year. I whipped out my calculator, and unless I made a mistake, that added up to 901,125 missing children per year just in the countries that were mentioned. That's almost 1 million. We basically say it's 1 million, minimum. This, however, the article says, is only a snapshot of the problem. In many countries, statistics on missing kids are not even available, and unfortunately, even the available statistics may be inaccurate due to things like underreporting and underrecognition, inflation, incorrect database entry of case information, and deletion of records once a case is closed. The lack of numbers and the discrepancy in the numbers that do exist is one of the key reasons why we developed and advocate for this missing child framework, which assists countries with building strong, well-rounded national responses, facilitating more efficient investigation, management, and resolution of these cases. We firmly believe one missing child is too many, and we are committed to improving the global understanding of and response to missing and abducted kids. There you go. So we're doing this for the kids. There's at least 1 million a year involved, and that's only with those countries that we just listed. So now he says, I have now conveyed the truth as I know it. There has been a rising chorus of people questioning my sanity in recent days, and now you can understand why. I have no idea what will be done to me or said about me in coming days, but I will rest well tonight for having spoken the truth. And he got almost 120,000 likes. That's unbelievable. Hardly anybody gets that many. Many issues in our world may be tied to the blackmail scheme I described tonight, including the bizarre behavior of officials and judges in the recent E. The President must appoint a special prosecutor to thoroughly investigate. We need answers, and we must investigate for the children. 96,000 likes. Unbelievable. If I am asked to turn over the encryption key and other information I have to law enforcement, I will only agree to provide it directly to the President, to Flynn, or to Powell. I trust them, obviously no one else. Again, please pray for my family. Thank you, Lynn. Then he came out with this, and this is on his Twitter, and you can go click on it. It's on thrivetimeshow.com, and they have links to everything there. You can click on the links and read all the extra information that supports what he's saying. It's amazing. It goes on for like an hour and a half. He says all these bombshell things. I do recommend going and listening to this. There's not many things I'd recommend. This is one of them for sure. I mean, you might not like everything he says. He might annoy you sometimes, but man, he's an amazing guy. Just an amazing guy. So remember that article he linked to, and I said Timothy Holmseth, right? I do not know. I'm receiving information today raising questions about the credibility of Timothy. I do not know this man. I received the link to his article from a trusted friend, and I posted it. I did not know he was the author. I can only leave the credibility of the content up to the reader. So, of course, everybody starts attacking this article that he links to. That's a very typical thing. I've seen it many, many, many times. And then you can read more about it here. And he says, thank you, Craig, the guy that dug this up and said, apparently this guy, Timothy, is wanted for violating restraining orders. He's a stalker. He's got felonies. He's insane, whatever. Okay, yeah, that might be true, but here's what he says. Thank you, Craig. You are a great man doing God's work to protect innocent children from being victimized. I know your superb reputation from several sources. In posting a tweet forwarded by a trusted friend, I did not intend to vouch for this author. I just posted the article. So that's a great way that a lawyer, a professional lawyer, handles this, because everybody tries to say that if you make one mistake, that everything you're saying is a lie, and nothing is true, and you've been caught, and you've been exposed. Okay, yeah, so this guy wrote an article, and now we find out the guy himself has a whole rap sheet. Doesn't mean that the lawyer who did this tweet is a bad person. Doesn't mean he supports him. It just is a fact. Okay, this is what happened to this guy. So there you go. I mean, we all have to deal with this. Everybody in this field is going to encounter information that might not be true or might have a taint on it somehow that you don't know about when you post it. You just have to roll with it. Okay, we're going to keep moving here because there's a few more. He says, the simple truth, this is 18 hours ago is the time I took these pictures, which was earlier today. The simple truth, based on the evidence, GAE was a fraud. Please consider reviewing and sharing with others. Thank you. And then, whoa, the tweet's unavailable. So very, very quickly, he linked to something and they took it down. And that should tell you right away how hot this is and how fast everything is being taken away. Okay? Then he says, he's linking to this court case, United States versus White. He says, I am not the Kraken. Sydney is not the Kraken. The Kraken is located in several places. And this, of course, is the 305th Battalion of the Army, as people have been saying. Others involved at the top level saying that's what it is. It's actually an organization. It's a code name for an organization in the alliance. Then he says, use all available methods to urge the president to immediately order release of documents filed under the seal of national security in the cases below. Have the military seize the documents. Now, I don't know about you, but when I look at this, I'm looking at horse trading, right? Is he really acting all by himself? Is he really just making open-ended suggestions that nobody's listening to? Or is there some collusion? Is there a coordinated effort? Is he saying things that needed to be said by somebody brave enough to do it, at a certain point, at a certain time, at a certain point in history? And that's what I think is going on here. So he's talking about what the Kraken is, and he says he wants to immediately order the release of documents filed under national security with the military. That would require military action to seize documents, which requires them to operate domestically, which means you'd have to do Insurrection Act, the 2018 EO that we've talked about. That's what's coming, folks. So here again, back to the slide. This is the court case. There's a lot of stuff that he tweets about this. I'm not going through all of it. To the next slide, he says, if the president orders the military to seize documents, Chief Justice Roberts, Rod R., Nancy P., and many others will be immediately arrested. Wow. Documents must be seized before they are destroyed. Time is now of the essence if this part of the Kraken is to be successful. Time is of the essence. Have to get it done now. No more time to waste. And all these people will be implicated. Well, one of the things he talked about in the radio shows is all of the names involved apparently were discussing the replacement of one of these justices on the court. But wait a minute, he was still alive. And then he supposedly dies of a heart attack afterwards, but the document shows that they were already talking about his replacement, strongly suggesting that they knew something was going to happen to him or that they were involved in it. So those appear to, when he actually said more on the radio, that's what he was implying this is going to be about. So if you've done all the homework, then you'd know all this already. So the point that he's making here, going back to the slide, is that time is now of the essence. Every day that is lost, evidence is being destroyed. People might be more apt to get away with things, so they're very tense. They don't want to wait very long, which is very important for everybody to know. And that's, again, up close. You know, if the president orders these documents seized, these people will be immediately arrested, and the documents must be seized before they get destroyed. Time is of the essence. So then he also says, if some, and he's got some typos probably from not being able to see small letters just like me. It's starting to happen to me now too. If someone seeks to destroy documents sealed for national security, they will now be successful because, you know, nobody's going in to take them. They will simply, they will now be successful. This is another typo. It's they will not be successful, right? Because he can't see the small letters, just like me sometimes. I type a lowercase I when I want to do an uppercase. It's annoying. So let's read it properly without the typos. If someone wants to destroy documents sealed for national security, they will not be successful. Instead, they will simply prove their complicity in heinous crimes. There is a dead man switch, and they cannot destroy the truth. Please act now, Mr. President. You can release the Kraken. But maybe they're asking each other to have this conversation, him and the president. Who knows? I mean, it's crazy. This is really intense. Then he literally says there are thousands of these videos. Look at this. This is from 16 hours ago at the time I took the picture. Many have previously seen this bath video. This is from Isaac, where one of the last things he did. It was very, very comprehensive. I will not repost it to avoid violation of Twitter rules. There are thousands of videos of this type of crime being committed by powerful people. Thousands with an S. Does that mean there's thousands of powerful people that are going to be involved too? Probably. This is huge, folks. Everything I've been telling you about mass arrests since 2009, all these people laughing at me. Guess what, folks? Are you laughing now? Probably not. Or if you are, it's just because you're very, very nervous. Chief Justice John must resign immediately. The storm is coming. Whoa. Thousands of videos. Resign immediately, which he hasn't done. The storm is coming. Something really heavy is about to happen, folks. I hope you can see that now. It is time for our country to unite against a common foe to protect our freedom and our future. The enemy is the communist... I'm not going to say it all. Support the president. He is a genius. He has our military ready. Well, we know what that means. We, the people, must also be ready. So you look at the bottom, and what is it saying? It's saying that the leader of this country is ordering the military to prepare for war. And this just came out, okay? So he's telling everybody, get ready for war. Why is he saying that? Maybe because they're getting ready to do something here, folks. Why else? Then we go back up to the top. So he links to this where the leader of this country is saying, get ready for war. And then he says, it is time for our country to unite against a common foe. And, you know, they're declaring war on us, supposedly, or getting ready to protect our freedom and future. Whoa. Support the president. He is a genius, and our military is ready. We, the people, must also be ready. This is heavy. I mean... And then he just released another new radio show this afternoon. I listened to it. It was about a half an hour long. 27 minutes ago that it was posted. Fireside Chat number 5. And then he says he's sharing what's on these laptops. It's very heavy, folks. So this is really intense. We're 2.5 hours in, and I'm pretty close to the end now. So there's another PDF file that he linked to in another tweet. It's not the ones that I gave you. It's another one that I didn't link to. But this is all part of his huge, huge storm of tweets he's been doing. And the title of this PDF is Prepare for War. Okay, so again, he's telling Americans, get ready for the unthinkable. What's the title of the paper? You'll see it right here. Reclaiming a Superpower, Americans Prepare for War. My goodness. Tipping point. The American people have lost control of their E-system. E-results no longer have any relationship to the voters' will. The E-results are now in the control of a relatively small network of bad actors who manipulate the system to produce virtually any result. This impacts all Americans, irrespective of their political party. Snapshot, margin of error, margin of victory. In other words, the margin of error in the U.S. presidential E within the contested exceeds the margin of victory by approximately 15 times, and therefore a winner cannot be determined. Figures below are based upon the work of Rudy and Peter's teams. See appendix. And then you look here, the contested state, Arizona, Then you look at the margin of victory. In other words, this is how many votes the contender supposedly won by. Only 10,000 in A, only 10,000 in G, 147,000 in M, 34,000 in N, 68,000 in P, and 10,000 in Wisconsin. All right, but then look at the next column. This is the number of these votes that they've already found that demand an investigation because they're so funky looking. 660,892 in the state of A, 1,567,146 in the state of G, 633,227 in M, 212,000 in N, 866,000 in P, 400,000 in Wisconsin, for a total of 4.3 million votes demanding investigation. That is crazy. And that's all going to be coming out in much more detail as the days go on. Okay, so again, the headline, Americans Prepare for War. Well, apparently they are, so you should be too, folks, because this is what's happening. What we know, highlights. Now, this is very interesting because it completely validates some briefings that I had gotten privately, and I was surprised to see this. POTUS is virtually alone inside the white H. Bullet point, no support. With the exception of a few souls, the president is surrounded by globalists and political opportunists who do not support him or the long-term interests of the republic. They, like the swamp they deceitfully claimed to drain, are interested only in lining up their next DC gig. Active obstruction. The president's own chief of S and White House counsel have actively thwarted numerous attempts to reach him and have actively campaigned against all efforts to secure evidence from the E. Chaos reigns. Tens of millions of people cling to the belief that the president, this is very important, folks. I'm going to really emphasize this one, okay? Tens of millions of people cling to the belief that the president has some magic plan that he is waiting to unveil. While there is a chance, wink wink, that he's going to reveal something, wink wink, on the 6th, the reality is much darker. The president is surrounded by impotent and self-interested staff. He has been betrayed by the very people surrounding him, and he is nearly alone in this war against evil. Every patriot needs to grasp how seriously this is. Widespread public support. On the outside, the WH of the picture is very different. President Trump has the devoted support of 80+ million souls. For every coup plotter, there are 1,000 patriotic Americans who will not let this nation be robbed from us. There you go. Then it says EO 13848, national emergency. On September 12th, 2018, the president declared a national E to address the threat of foreign interference in a U.S. E, declaring it an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of this country. Foreign interference divined. Quote, well, you don't really need to hear all that. I mean, you can read that if you want to. Anyway, look at this over here. This is really funny. Here's some boxes that say Dominion on them, right, for these machines. And guess what it says at the bottom? Made in China. Boom. So that's one of the funny things. And you can read the other stuff here, but here's a big one. Foreign interference in the USE associated with America's enemies. Hutan Yaghubzada, that's probably something I shouldn't have said anyway, is the CEO and chairman of Staple Street, and this owns the D voting da-da-da, you know that. So D is owned by Staple Street. Hoot, whatever his name is, I'm not going to keep saying it, is a close confidant to associates of the guy who used to run Iraq, Saddam, and worked for, the Saudi bin Laden Group, the Carlyle Group, and Cerberus Capital Management. Whoa. There's a whole lot of stuff that's going to come out here. Foreign actors, all this crazy stuff, folks. Attacks on American soil, what we know, highlights. Destroying evidence. AT&T's Nashville facility was attacked by a weapon. They're not saying it might have been. They definitely say it was. And they don't say what the weapon was, but we talked about that. Most likely to destroy evidence and data which would reveal e-fraud in this particular state, starting with G. The official narrative perpetrated by the mainstream is being rigidly enforced by every powerful institution in the country. Did it ever occur to them to simply ask, when is the last time the FBI solved any crime in 48 hours? Right? Yeah, it's totally normal, nothing bad happened. But he says here, most likely to destroy evidence and data that would have revealed the fraud. So it's very obvious that it was attacked to try to cover things up. Mail-in ballot justification. This particular thing that happened last year was an orchestrated attack by the blankety-blank party. The virus they allowed to travel around worldwide not only crippled America's economy, but also provided direct justification for a massive mail-in campaign that led to egregious and material irregularities in what we just went through. So there you go. He's laying it right on the line here. This is what he believes, obviously. Invisible manipulation. Very smart and sophisticated people manipulate in subtle, almost undetectable ways that reside within the margin of error. These inconsequential attacks that a casual observer would not see, however, are detectable by forensic audit. Examples of subtle election continues. And then we have B printing. A laptop with B designer software connected to a B printer loaded with blank paper is not necessarily an issue. However, taping the password to the laptop allowing access to the printing is a security issue, especially when virtually all the staff have access to the printing equipment room. See pictures below. So you can see there, the password is taped onto the keyboard, California 2020 with an exclamation point. Then in the middle, you see the ballot printing system. So they can literally make new ones if they want to using that password, and ballot loaded with blank paper. So boom, there it is. Our choices. Here's what he says. Our window to solve this is closing. Much time has been wasted by bad and incompetent actors who are trying to run out the clock. Currently, Senator Cruz has proposed we conduct a 10-day audit of the E's, starting on the 6th. I hope they do this. I really do, because I think we need the time. This is not enough time to conduct an audit. Wow, so 10 days isn't even enough. Had this been done a month ago, it might have been able to reveal the will of the voters, but now it will only clog the system and appease people who don't understand how the process works. Efforts for transparency will be thwarted at every stage, which is why it's ultimately going to come down to a military activity. The time for auditing the 2020 U.S. blah-da-da has passed. Our remaining options, you got A, B, and C. A, contingent election for the president in the U.S. B, accept the obvious corruption in the U.S. government. Well, they're not going to do that. Or C, war. So obviously they're not going to do B based on the context of the other things they said. So there's only two options, a contingent election or war. And one of the briefings that we got, by the way, and I'll just throw this out there, is that there have been apparently new ballots printed. So we don't know if this will actually happen, but one of the possible outcomes that could occur is a recount, a re-election in these swing states. And that's a really big deal, because if we get the recount, or if we actually redo it, right? If the whole thing is ruled out that it's too messy, it's too compromised, whatever, people have to redo it. It probably is not going to work out the same. And when whatever takes place that steals it from the theft, right? If the people trying to steal it don't get what they want, if they fall apart, if they have a problem, if they can't get it to work, their next move is to totally try to create all this chaos in our cities, which could involve loss of the power grid, could involve mass casualties, really nasty stuff. We don't know what the heck could happen, but it's not looking good. So, you know, contingent election is one option and war is another option. There's really only two that he's giving you. Then going back to the slide again here, this is the last thing he said. When a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Thomas Jefferson, Declaration of Independence, 1776. So once again, it's a 1776 kind of situation happening now. So what exactly is it that they are expecting to happen? And this is an interesting discussion. What are we expecting to happen? Probably, and again, nobody really knows. I want to be very clear on this. Just because I might take a guess doesn't mean that it's going to go this way. Everything hinges on tomorrow. Do they try to ram Joe through? Do we not hear anything about it? Does Pence step down? Does he certify, it the way it is, or does he call for an investigation? Does the investigation happen in one quick day? Is it really fast and doesn't really do anything? Does it last 10 days? All this stuff, these are questions we don't really know the answers to. But one of the most probable scenarios that we've heard many times is that through standard legal due process of whatever variety, somehow legally, we get some kind of results and there is actually a flip and the incumbent gets it for a second term. Okay, that could happen. The minute that the second term would be announced, the minute that there was a victory of that type, that's when everybody is expecting full-scale crazy stuff to start taking place in American cities. Bad stuff, really bad stuff. Much worse than what we've seen before potentially. It's at that point that this activation will take place because it will be in defense of the country. It will be in defense against these attacks. And is there a problem with the audio?
I don't know. I think it's fine.
Are you seeing me on the viewfinder when I'm talking? Does it go up and down?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because when my wife starts screwing around with cables on the back of the machine, I get really scared. Uh-oh. Okay, but we're good. So, yeah, I mean, I've been doing videos on this. I've been talking to you guys about this for so long. I've had so many things to say about what might happen, how it might happen. And again, it seems pretty likely that you're going to lose internet, you're going to lose the phone, you might lose power. You might lose power for a few days, you might lose power for a couple of weeks. If you're in a big urban area, you might lose power for longer than a couple of weeks. It's possible. We don't really know. You might see UFO wars taking place. You might see the blue ones versus the white ones, like we saw in Hawaii, where they're shooting down into the ocean, and all these people are calling the police going, oh my God, I saw this crazy thing, and it shot down into the water, and then another one showed up. Well, that kind of stuff might get to be a lot crazier and a lot more visible. We also are expecting that your phone is going to make a noise and you're going to get an emergency broadcast notification. It'll be a presidential notification. You'll hear the sound, your phone is going to make a noise, and unlike the other tests that we've had before, this time you're probably going to get information. Will it come out in the form of an audio voice that says something? Probably. Or it could be a robotic voice. I'm not sure. It might be text. I don't know what it is. But it's probably going to do something like tell you to please remain calm, stay home, da-da-da-da. And that something is going on, but please don't leave the house. That seems pretty solid that you'll hear a message like that. Again, I always recommend just rice and beans. You know, you don't need to get anything too fancy, too complex. Get a lot of frozen food. Throw it in the freezer. Get a lot of canned food. You can open up cans real easily. That's what people are recommending. But honestly, my dreams are not telling me to expect... This is the only kind of tools I have. I mean, I'll use every tool I have because this is so freaking important. And when you read what I've done in Awakening in the Dream here, once again, you know, this is a technique that I've written a whole book about, 560-page book, okay? And it's proven to be accurate on many, many occasions. And so my own dream pings, I've had multiple dream pings, the dreams are very excited. They're not saying it's going to be bad. They're not saying it's going to take a long time. They're not saying it's going to be too terribly horrible. I don't think you're going to see this massive casualty stuff, like with the 6th gen kind of thing. But you know, you might not have radio. Well, you would have radio. So back to the slide real quick. There is certain equipment that has been recommended by the Alliance. And I was going to actually show it to you here. I don't actually have it in front of me. But anyway, we'll bring that out on another occasion. But let's just say right for now that the things that the Alliance has recommended, if you really, really want to be plugged in, okay, here we go. You should have a CB radio. That's one of the things they recommended, but more than anything is like a shortwave type of radio. So there's one called a Midland DB500. The Midland DB500, I have 2 of them now. It's a little box that mounts in your car, and it has a little wire that comes off it and a little thing that you can hold on. It looks like what the cops would use. When I actually bought the Midland DB500, you have to mount it in a car, and it only has plugs to be mounted in a car. There's another one that looks like a little walkie-talkie, and it's called something like a Yaesu, Y-A-E-S-U 6XR. And this is actually a fully functional shortwave radio that does work with batteries. You can hold it in your hand. You can get any frequency you want on that. So you might end up having a lot of time, and you might want to hear about who's talking. Shortwave is still going to work. So you can buy this shortwave radio at Walmart cheaply. It's like $150 or $100, something like that. And anyway, maybe in the next video, if we're still here, I'll show you all these cool pieces of equipment. We can have a little show and tell. But basically, if you have a radio of some kind, my wife and I also got the walkie-talkies with a 40-mile range on them in case we needed those. It's probably not going to take very long. It's probably not going to, you know, just enjoy the time off, honestly, and get ready for whatever is going to be coming afterwards. But by the time these events start to happen, there should already have been very, very shocking things that we've learned about. Back to the slide. These benevolent ETs out there are real. This has been my specialty all this time, connecting with them, reading the things they've given us as written teachings that appear accurate, like the Law of One, studying how they handle, you know, our nuclear arsenal, these UFOs powering them down. They will make sure that we do not lose this. They will make sure that our planet is okay. I believe this. It's a very fundamental belief of mine. And we are told that disclosure should result from these revelations fairly quickly. We're going to find out we're not alone in the universe. And again, I'm just going to do this quickly because I did it last show, and some people get mad if I repeat anything. These are the last few slides. The Israeli space official says the ETs are already here. And again, this was on TMZ. Look at that. Ex-Israeli space official says extraterrestrials and Galactic Federation are real, and they're hiding until we are ready for them, which obviously hasn't happened just yet. Here's another one, Middle East news. Aliens exist and Trump knows it, says the former head of Israel's secret space program. Former head of Israel's space division. What is their space division? That's interesting. Let's even try to find out what that is. Aliens are real, and Trump was on the verge of confirming their existence. And again, this is from Middle East Eye. I read this to you before, but it's definitely worth doing it again. The former head of Israel's space program has publicly claimed that the U.S. and Israeli governments are in touch with extraterrestrials, and that a galactic federation governing us is already in existence. These are the guys making sure we're going to be okay, folks. This is the top guy from Israel, the head of the space program. Do you think he knows something? Haim Eshed, who ran their space program for nearly 30 years in Israel, has said that humanity is not ready to make contact with this alien or extraterrestrial. We don't use the word alien because they're humans for the most part, like us. This extraterrestrial civilization, who he claims this civilization had to intervene to prevent our president from blurting out their secrets, maybe because it wasn't the right time yet for us to know. We have to have these things happen first before we get disclosure. We have to have the negative get exposed first. It's just timing. It has to be done that way. The 87-year-old made the comments to the Israeli newspaper Yediot Aharonot ahead of the publication of a new book entitled The Universe Beyond the Horizon, dealing with these claims. I definitely want to read that book, as I said before. The ETs have asked not to announce that they are here because we are not yet ready, he told this publication. They have been waiting for us to evolve and reach a stage where we will generally understand what space and spaceships are. I think something got lost in translation here, as I said last time. It's a lot more than just understanding what spaceships are. I mean, we have to evolve to be more compassionate and loving to one another and not trying to kill each other. There's an agreement between the U.S. government and the extraterrestrials. They, the ETs, signed a contract with us to do experiments here. There's lots of different types of experiments. Some of these ETs are just oceanographers. They don't even worry about the life on Earth. They're just worried about what's in the ocean. Lots of different types from what we've heard. He also explained that they have a base on Mars, these extraterrestrials. That's fascinating because we've been saying that for, I don't know, ever since I came out on the internet. The president was on the verge of revealing their existence, but the ETs and the Galactic Federation are saying, wait, we have to let people calm down first. Now, why do I think they're telling us to wait? I think there is a sequence of how these things have to go. The way the higher forces wanted it to happen is that the horrific evil has to be exposed first. We've heard about this. We've discussed it. We've read the tweets. It's coming from the top guy in the administration. The attorney for the president is telling us all this stuff right now. This is happening today. This is our real lives. It's true. Okay? Now, at one point, my wife was saying we had 18,000 people watching live. It's probably gotten less than that now. How many is it right now? Do you know?
It's 19,000.
Oh, it's 19,000. Wow. All right. Well, that's awesome. So what I want to do here is use, back to the slide, the meditation technology. Because what we found out is from the original studies done by the Transcendental Meditation folks, they got these big gatherings together of in some cases 7,000 people. And they meditated. But in the course of their meditation, let's go back to this camera now. In the course of their meditation, all over the world, as these people are meditating, during the time that they're meditating, 7,000 people, you have massive reduction in war, crime, terrorism, fatalities, all these things that are exactly what we're so afraid of happening right now. We have 19,000 people listening live right now. You're watching me live right now, 19,000 of you, 19,000 souls. It doesn't matter if you believe whether this works or not, and please, don't be the chump who says, oh, this is when David does the meditation. I don't want to listen to this stuff. It's late, I'm tired, I'm turning it off, I'm going to sleep. Because we look at the curve, you know, we notice a few of you guys are rolling off at the end. Please stay with us just long enough to do a short little 5-minute thing. It's not going to be very long. I'm going to get this under 3 hours. I will. Because this is my last slide. Okay, so this is it. We get up to the meditation and then we do it and we stop. Now, how in the world could 7,000 people meditating change the free will of 3/4 of every living person on Earth? 72% is almost 75. That's 3/4 of every living person on Earth. How did those 7,000 people change their free will? How did they make them not do crime, war, terrorism, domestic violence, fatalities? We don't really know the answer, except that it appears that when a group of people are coming together for a common purpose and meditating with certain specific protocols, that everybody's free will on Earth changes, that your emotional temperature goes down. Think about what would happen if you're trapped in a room and the room starts to get really frickin' hot and all the doors are locked and there's a crowd of people and they're trying to open the doors and all you know is the door isn't opening, and now you're getting mad because those folks in the front have no effing idea what they're doing, but all I know is the effing door isn't opening. F that, I'm getting up there. I gotta open the door myself. Riots start to happen, people start punching each other, and it all has to do with the fact that the room they're in is getting so freaking hot, the temperature is so high that they need to escape. They need to open the door and they need to get out of there. They can't handle it anymore. The works like the law of one that I talk about in this book, okay, the temperature that I'm actually talking about is a solar system change. It's us moving into a new area of energy in our galaxy. Energy that, by the way, has an extraordinary temperature. Elizabeth, you were just doing something on this recently. Do you remember what the temperature is of the new energy that we're moving into in the galaxy?
6,000 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, you just presented on this.
Cosmic fluff.
So there's something called a cosmic fluff, as you were saying, Elizabeth, and we studied this, and so there's this material that's got a 6,000 degree Celsius temperature. That's so hot. Boiling point's only 100 degrees Celsius, right? We're moving into like a massive wildfire in the galaxy, an energetic wildfire. It's got much more energy, and according to sources like the Law of One, which I've validated scientifically, that energy is intelligent. It's alive. So as our solar system as a whole is drifting into this cloud that has a 6,000 degree Celsius temperature, it's blazing freaking hot. All that heat is coming around our solar system, and it's heating up the solar system, which is causing climate change on Earth, global warming, and all throughout the solar system. If you're a long-term fan of my work and you go back and look at everything, you see that many times I've talked about interplanetary climate change. I've listed off Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. They're all having very strange anomalies that collectively mean they're getting brighter, they're getting hotter, they have more magnetic energy, the temperature's going up, as I said, they're getting hotter. It's happening everywhere. So there's something going on that, again, we've never been able to hear about. But according to these esoteric sources that are allegedly extraterrestrially derived, if you can believe that, and it certainly seems like extraterrestrials are real, and apparently they love to communicate telepathically. It's their favorite method because it doesn't violate free will. They don't want to show up in your room. They don't want to take you on their ship and give you a ride. They prefer to do it through dreams and telepathy before they go any farther. And usually they don't do anything other than dreams and telepathy. It's very rare that anybody gets more than that as a contact. So with all this information that's been given to us, we are being told that there is an energetic increase going on in our solar system, and that it's to some higher dimensional level, some higher density, as the Law of One would call it. But it's essentially like a quantum leap into a higher level of what it means to be human on planet Earth. And we are going through that evolutionary process right now. It's rapid. And the process begins in the spirit, and if your spirit can't process all the information, it spills over into your mind. And if your mind can't process all the information, it spills over into the body. Now, what do I mean by that? That sounds weird. What do you mean spills over? Okay. In the Law of One, and Elizabeth and I, we had a whole lively discussion about this, the term catalyst, and I looked it up in the Law of One. It shows up over 200, it's about 200 instances of the word catalyst. Well, because, you know, Elizabeth and I were talking about, does the universe want you to always be comfortable? The answer is absolutely not. The universe deliberately steers discomfort into your life in the form of what the Law of One calls catalyst. And it can be anything from inspiring catalyst to very disturbing negative catalyst. But catalyst is a word that just means something that you experience that causes you to have spiritual growth of some variety. It's catalyst, okay? Well, here's the thing. We need this catalyst. We need to have stuff that knocks us around, upsets us, challenges us. You know, athletic exercise is a type of catalyst, right? Do you really want to be doing hours and hours of exercise a day? Some people really get off on it, but most people don't like it. They do it because they need to keep their bodies healthy, right? So exercise is a catalyst. You don't really like it, but you have to do it. All of us now are being brought through a global collective initiation. The events that are taking place on planet Earth are part of a preordained schedule that ends after 25,920 years. It takes that long. And it has to do with the Earth's position in our solar system and galaxy. And that at the end of the 25,000-year cycle, this is when you get the interplanetary climate change. This is when the energy goes up, when you move into this cloud. All these things happen that the esoteric materials talk about, which I've now validated scientifically, way beyond the scope of this particular video. Anyway, the point is that we are now being bathed with this energy that is supposedly transforming our DNA elevating our consciousness, and bringing in this new reality. However, when you are exposed to this energy, if you're not ready for it, it will really, really disrupt your life. So everybody is getting that disruption. We are going through a collective disruption. Everybody on earth is suffering. The economy is terrible. Nobody's working. Everybody's stuck at home. It's really, really lousy. And we're now having these huge fears come up in the mass consciousness about the possibility of being taken over by some sort of global fascism. Microchips, implants, mass extinction, done deliberately. These are things that everybody's thinking about now. Even the people who were ignoring this and didn't pay attention and didn't think about the globalists or the elite or whatever you want to call it, everybody is thinking about this, and that's what had to happen. That's why the extraterrestrials wouldn't let the president disclose until after this happens, until after we get these arrests done, because there needs to be a sequence in this awakening. But this is the ascension process. Learning what's really going on Earth. People would always say, oh, David, you focus on the negative. Man, why are you so negative? You're focusing on this horrible stuff. Well, because it's a problem that we have to deal with. This is our challenge as Earthlings on planet Earth to rise up to and to surmount this challenge. And the best tool that I have right now tonight is to do this meditation with you. So in the last couple of minutes remaining here, I want to do that. And I want to respect this process. Because, again, she just said we have 19,000 people watching live. We have way more than 7,000, so this is enough. Now, again, the process, the people who were in those groups of 7,000 where these major reductions in terrorism fatalities happened, a lot of them didn't think it was going to work. They were scratching their butt, you know, I don't know, man, you know, just not really into it, but trying. Nonetheless, they sat and they tried to do the meditation. So you don't have to be perfect, but please don't deny us the value of your soul being involved in this, because if we could reduce the possibility of war happening starting tomorrow by 72%, that's 3/4, if we can make it 72% less likely that things are going to get really bad, why in the world would we not do it? Do you understand now why this year I've been so careful not to talk too much and not to do too many videos? Because I needed to have this technology on this platform ready to use with you when the S hits the fan, which is right now, okay? I don't want you to panic. I don't want you to think this is all going to hell, because we can still change the outcome. We can control the outcome. We can decree how we want this thing to work out, what we want to see, and the higher forces are required to listen to us. So it is possible that by me doing this tonight with Elizabeth and us leading you through this guided meditation, that we could actually get a better timeline than if I didn't do this tonight. And that's why I had to do it tonight, and it couldn't be any later than tonight. Elizabeth, didn't I just say we're definitely doing it tonight? It's got to be tonight. All right, here we go. We're out of time. We'll do a little 5-minute meditation. So, all right. I now ask that you close your eyes. You can lie down if that's comfortable. You can at least have both feet flat on the floor. And I just ask that you take a nice deep breath in through the nose and let it go out through the mouth. And then take another nice deep breath in and just let it go. Allowing yourself to feel so deeply relaxed, knowing that this has a purpose. The more relaxed you feel, the more you allow all the tension to melt out of every muscle in your body. The more you can do that, the more you relax. Imagine that you are like a lens, and that loving energy is lensing through you into the very earth beneath your feet. You notice how happy you feel. The inner smile, the feeling of warmth the feeling of love. You're so relaxed. Imagining the most beautiful paradise for you. Maybe it's a tropical island with a little palm tree and perfect cobalt blue water. Maybe there's a little hammock in between two trees on this island, and maybe you're just lying in that hammock, drinking coconut water, feeling the gentle swaying back and forth of the hammock, smelling the salt of the ocean, hearing the cries of the seagulls, and the gentle roar of the waves as they crash against the shoreline. Feeling as if all time has stopped, as if it's a perfect moment. Feeling the sun's warmth on your skin, the drying of the sand, the delicious taste of the coconut water, the perfection of the sun, the smell of the breeze, the sound of the wind, the sound of the shore, or whatever else for you feels to be the most perfect, beautiful place, a gorgeous mountainous view, a beautiful sunset. Whatever it is that keeps you relaxed so that you go deeper and deeper into a feeling of relaxation, satisfaction, and peace. Just let it happen. And I ask again that you visualize as you keep breathing, each breath, you are pumping light energy into this planet and sharing it with all others on Earth, lensing it in. Breathe and lens. Breathe this energy in and lens it out through you, out into the world, out into all others, and into the planet. And we ask at this time of great strain, we ask that these very important steps be done as peacefully as possible, that those working hard to save our planet from very upsetting events will be protected, that there will be minimal casualties, maximum success, minimum time, that they are guided and protected. All those who are alone, who are being betrayed by everyone they knew, surrounded by enemies, even those they thought they could trust, everyone is betraying at the last minute. Send prayers, send whatever you choose, meditation, light, to all those who are diligently working to bring about a future that we can be happy with and proud of, a future of freedom, a future where trillions of dollars of stolen money is released and repatriated into the global economy, where there are reparations, where there are payments that everyone gets to help rebuild and usher in an astonishing new era of global prosperity, where forbidden technologies are released, where we have over unity, free energy, machines that simply run, cars that drive forever without ever going to the gas station, gravitational propulsion, anti-gravity, space travel, real spaceships with warp drive, medical technology that can use electromagnetic techniques to alleviate much, if not almost all, of the things that ail us, and wonderful garbage processing technologies that will take all of the waste that we left behind and convert it into benign and useful materials like distilled water and fuel. All of these things are within our grasp. And the more relaxed you become, just imagine going through this transitional period on Earth smoothly, people feeling a sense of relief, people understanding it, people having the time to digest and process the information before anything else begins. Protection for all those involved in securing our freedom and our rights and our liberty. And also, please, send love and light to yourself. If you've been hard on yourself, if you've judged yourself unfairly, if you don't think you're attractive enough or thin enough or young enough or smart enough or beautiful enough, all those judgmental thoughts circulating around, this is the tool of the negative. To divide and conquer. To get us focused on trivialities where we turn on one another, where we're easily offended, where we argue over inconsequential details that are far less important than a war that might be about to happen. As we drill down deep into this feeling of peace, this warm relaxation, I now ask that we have a moment of silence, and that during this time you consciously visualize love beaming into the planet and beaming into all souls on earth to give us the greatest and most favorable outcome for what is about to happen. Begin now. Let us take this energy that we've raised and let us intend, let us decree that we claim our sovereignty, we claim our freedom, we claim our right to exist on this planet, for our voices to be heard and for our souls to matter. We do not deserve to be killed. We do not deserve to be raped. We do not deserve to be tortured. We do not deserve to be microchipped. We do not deserve to be injected. We do not deserve to be assassinated. We demand justice. Where we go one, we go all. And so it is. All right, everybody, I want to thank you for watching. There's a whole lot of stuff that's going to happen, and I hope that I'll be able to report a lot more coming up. Elizabeth, you have any last words before we get out of here? She said, thank you, everybody, and I thank you as well. This is David Wilcock, Global Acrimonious Divorce Part 4.